All right, police reporting a crash 65 southbound near Trinity Lane, then eastbound the East Loop downtown right before James Robertson Parkway. TDOT says there's a crash there. Another crash reported by police 40 eastbound at Church Street. Police say there's one 440 eastbound at Nolensville Pike. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The sweet, sweet sound of freedom. Welcome to the Matt Murphy Show. Matt's out engaging in various risky activities. Erica wasn't available, so Matt went to Tunica, I think. So he and Jay are living it up, and we're going to live it up for several hours. We have a really cool show today. One of the things that has come up throughout Matt's show, my columns over at the Tennessean, and frankly, you guys have chimed in on this regularly, is the subject of artificial intelligence, AI. What's good AI? What's bad AI? Is it all bad? Is it all good? Well, we've got a treat today. Should be around 3:30. Tim Estes is going to join the show. And Tim, I'm not smarter than you. Tim's smarter than all of us. Tim is a gifted individual who was thinking about artificial intelligence before it ever made headlines. He started and built a company called Digital Reasoning, and now he's building a company called Angel Q AI. I'm very, very excited to have him on the show. I think it's going to be an exciting time. And on the SuperTalk text line, 615-737-9986, and that incidentally is the same number to call in, 615-737-9986. When he gets here, I really just want an opportunity for you guys who are listening to call in and ask some of the questions to a subject matter expert, a homegrown subject matter expert. This is not a Silicon Valley specialist. This is somebody who's right here, actually went to Brentwood Academy with me. So I've known Tim for a very long time. He's a little older and these days a little grayer than me, but not by much. And extremely talented and, frankly, a credible voice on this who has a high level of character. When all this stuff is free, you're the product. And so the question here is, what are you giving up? What's the future look like? What's it look like for jobs? We hear about AI, and we're wondering, am I going to have a job? Is this going to help me, or is it going to replace me? And I think it's a conversation we need to have. I understand that we're not going to skirt the political talk. We've got plenty of that as well. I'll give you guys an update on Congress. What y'all know this? Some of y'all who are regular listeners know. In the 119th Congress that started in January, how many laws has Congress enacted? We're going to find out. We're going to get that number, and we're going to talk about it for a little while. We'll talk about some ways that rank and file members of Congress can kick leadership in the butt and maybe get them moving. We will talk about beach shell art. James Comey engaged in some very interesting shell displays, shall we say, and then everyone grotesquely overreacted because that's the world we live in right now. Glenn Cassida and Cade Cothran were found guilty. I think it was 17 charges, or 17 counts for Cassida and 19 for Cawthron on conspiracy and basically using taxpayer money in ways that they shouldn't and using their public offices for personal gain. We'll talk about that for a little bit. We'll talk chicken wings. Yeah, that's right. I was eating dinner the other night. It was just me and my youngest, the little beast, who, by the way, graduated 5th grade today. Very excited.
Congratulations.
It was not and that melodious sound you hear right there is Ken Weaver. And we've got Mason back here. He's less melodious, but every bit as important because you're not going to be able to hear anything without him.
Yeah, I could shut you off at any moment.
Yeah.
It's very, if the red light goes off, I'm in trouble. And it's, if they have to dump anything I said before you guys hear it, then I really, really messed up. But these guys make it happen. Ken obviously keeping you informed. So I apologize for not getting to that initially. I also start every time I fill in for Matt because I hate it when you don't know. I see you 1972 on the Super Talk text line telling me exactly how many laws have been passed by Congress. I'm not going to tell people how many, but you got it right. Hint, it's not a very high number. It's actually so underwhelming. We should be like the Bobs on Office Space. And what would you say you do here? Oh, you go on Fox News and say words and also issue strongly worded letters? Good job, said nobody ever. What are you doing? But yes, 1972 on the text line got it exactly right. Probably used the Google machine. Probably. Just saying.
Or the AI.
The AI. You got to, hopefully it was the good AI, not the bad AI.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the bad AI. But I want you guys to always know where I'm coming from. Jason said, Mason, you've been here all day.
Yes, sir, I have.
Are we going to let you
Sleep?
go?
No.
No?
No.
Jason got it right, too, on Congress, by the way. Of course he would.
Yeah.
He didn't even say anything inappropriate. It was that bad. He's like, no, they're terrible. I don't have anything left to say. They're just
It's just bad.
bad. Yeah.
It's just bad.
Yeah. And we will get into that. But I hate it when people get on behind a microphone or get on the camera and say, let me tell you about all of these things. And then you find out later that they're telling you stuff that they have an interest in or they're biased and it's, somehow not shooting you straight. So I always want you guys to know exactly where I'm coming from, what I do. My day job's over at Thanks, where we help folks grow their business with gratitude. It's actually kind of a fun concept of, hey, you enjoyed doing business with somebody. Send them coffee for the week. Neat. Cool. That's what I do. It's actually one of the most fun jobs you can ever have because you get to try to help people show gratitude. Gratitude is one of those weird things where it's sort of like Christmas presents you stick in the closet. Everybody likes Christmas presents.
Yeah.
But imagine that you forget to give it to someone and you just leave it in the closet. It's like, I got them the perfect gift. It's wonderful. And it'll really make them understand how much I care about them. And then you leave it in the closet.
Just don't tell about it.
And that's the story of gratitude in 2025.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Everybody loves gratitude. There's nobody that's not a fan of being grateful. There's a ton of people that just don't do it. Like they don't say thank you. They don't say I appreciate you. I was talking to my boys about this last night, that the positive impacts of just being appreciative. When the waitress fills your glass of water, thank you. I really appreciate that. Hey, Mason, thanks for not shutting me off. Really appreciate that.
I got you, Cameron.
It's these type of things. It's just a little thing, but we have forgotten that virtue in our culture. So it's really cool to get to work with that in business. Also, several of you have seen The Ballad of Davy Crockett. I have some great buddies that we've been working on movie projects. We got another one in the works. Hopefully we'll get it moving here shortly. I'm also a columnist over at the Tennessean. It's a big deal for me to be able to respond to you. I'm not there to listen to myself talk, to look at my columns and say, you have great opinions. It's, what do you want to talk about? What issue can I address? One of the recent ones I addressed was Mayor O'Connell's lawlessness masquerading as kindness. And the thing about it is he's a fine guy. But this idea that we're being kind when we selectively enforce the laws is something that I just can't get behind. And to be able to be over there, write columns, be a part of the editorial board, it's something I really enjoy, but I only enjoy it when I get feedback from you guys. So if you like what I have to say, tell me. If you hate what I have to say, tell me. Because, this is something Matt and I, we kind of joke about it with our podcast, All the Best Words, that he says all the best words, I write all the best words. But the truth is, we are nothing without you guys. We want to know the words you want us to talk about, that we can inform you, educate you, challenge you sometimes, but ultimately have a really good conversation along the way and, lift everybody up. At D. Cameron Smith on the X Machine. And again, I'm going to say it until you start doing it. Hashtag TN Politics. I think this is one of the coolest things that Matt and I experienced in Alabama, actually. The hashtag AL Politics was what everybody used to tag their commentary about what was going on in the state. So Twitter actually became a really, really useful tool for keeping up with what was happening in state politics. So hashtag TN Politics, give it a shot. So before we get into the AI, I do want to give you guys an update on the beasts. So whenever I jump in here, I have 5 boys in my house, okay? They range, I've got 16, 15, 15, 14, 10, almost 11. So we don't have sheetrock in many places. We're learning to patch quite well. We haven't really painted a lot of those patches, so my house looks like a tornado happening. So everybody's moving on to the next stage, and I just want to tell you guys, we need to bring back the summer cuts. Do y'all know what a summer cut is?
Burr.
Yes.
Shade.
Yes.
Yeah.
My dad, and a lot of y'all know my dad, Sid Smith, he was the neighborhood barber.
All right.
We used to live over in Chenoweth off Concord Road, for those of y'all who know where that is, over in Brentwood. And my dad would set a chair out back. And then all the neighborhood kids, we'd all be playing, because this is before everybody became screen zombies. We would just run around the neighborhood, right? In large packs of kids.
Yep.
They would just come, and my dad would go zzz, 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 and just zip off their hair. And everybody would line up. Everybody had buzzes. Now, these days, I went to the 5th grade promotion. No, it wasn't promotion. It was recognition. I can't keep track of this. It's not a graduation. It's a recognition.
Doing great.
I recognize my son all the time. He's right there. But some of the hair, man, was just wild. It was like hair helmet. And in the summer, we got to bring back the summer cuts. That's got to be a thing. We got to, the buzzes, this is old school. For those of y'all who have boys, this keeps the sand and dirt out of your house, because you can just hose them off before they come in.
Yep.
We've got to return to the basics on a number of things in our culture. And I think summer cuts are a good way to start, because guess what? If everybody has a buzz, nobody cares about their hair.
That's right. And your whole head gets tanned.
It does. And I'll tell you what is funny, though. That first buzz is the whitest head you ever seen.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
It is glow-in-the-dark white, and you're like, what did you do? But it's a great way to surprise mom, is just follow somebody to a random neighborhood friend and get your hair all cut off, and come back home, and she'll be, what did you do? And you just say, what?
If you know you're getting it buzzed, I feel like if I were the one cutting the hair, I feel like I would get creative with what I'm giving them. Do like reverse mohawks and whatnot.
Yeah, we call that.
Let them run around for a little bit.
We call that the skunk. There's also the friar tuck.
Yep.
There's a lot of different options that we can do. And I want you guys to think about it. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get after it on a number of other topics. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
All right, we are tracking the potential for severe weather here in Middle Tennessee. I'll tell you a little bit more about the timeline to be aware. Guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time. And the U.S. Supreme Court has just dealt another blow to the Trump administration. We'll tell you about it at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. Cameron Smith, thank you for joining me this evening. Looking at the breaking news on the CNN, talking about the Sean Diddy Combs trial, and I just am never going to be okay with the term freak-offs.
Yeah.
That's just weird, man.
Yeah, that's this whole thing.
Yeah. I just, wow. I get it that people can be weird, but at some point the weird seems to like multiply exponentially, and then you wind up with 1,000 bottles of baby oil. And that just, it's not excited. Tom said that he has clippers, and so, Ken, he can do your hair at any time.
All right.
7007, which is the cool last 4 digits of your cell phone number, said the traced hand is a great summer cut. So you do one higher level buzz, trace the hand, and then do a lower level around that hand. So you basically have a raised handprint on your head. I can get behind that. 3476 said, I got the skunk with a double mohawk, and my mom just laughed at me. That's a great, that mom's a great American. But yeah, I've done it. I've done it all. I
had a flat top one time as a kid.
Yeah.
Had a flat top. But whenever I was a kid, I didn't want the buzzed haircut because, kind of like your neighborhood, whenever I was a kid in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, man, there were kids everywhere in my neighborhood. And I'm talking all ages. Now, the teenagers who we looked up to, we thought they were cool. They all had long hair. But then all us little kids whose parents could still tell them what to do, we all had buzz cuts.
Yes.
And I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well,
I wanted long hair.
My dad just referred to everybody with long hair as a hippie.
Yes.
So you're a hippie. And you don't want to be a hippie because, I mean, for my dad, they were all the same thing. Like, if you're a hippie, you love drugs.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you had long hair, you love drugs and probably not Jesus. And this was just sort of the way. And so it was, you will have a buzz cut. He did, however, and I remember this vividly because it was a moment in my childhood. My younger brother had grown out his hair long, not like long, but long for us. And he had this, I don't know whether it was a tick or he just liked to sort of flip it a little, you know?
Yeah.
And my dad did not like flippy hair.
No, sir.
That was bad. And he told my brother, he said, you flip that one more time, it's gone. And my brother did not, and I don't think he was being disrespectful, but it just happened right then. He went, whoop, and my dad said, outside. And then zoop, 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 zoop.
There it was.
And it was gone. And I was like, wow.
So your dad had some old school clippers.
Yeah, he did, man. I mean, I don't know if those were for cows or what they were for. I think they might have been dog clippers. If you want to know the truth, my clippers at my house are dog clippers because they're better than the people clippers.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we can go fast. We can mow through some hair. But, at any rate, I think this is the kind of thing that you got to start somewhere. And I noticed it was telling because at this 5th grade recognition, they had their end of year essays, and they picked 3 songs and talked about it, and they had an album cover, right? And the album cover was their experience thus far in life, which
cool.
was, I don't know whose kid it was, but one of the album covers just said, bruh. I was like, you're my guy. I like that one. That's pretty cool. My son picked, and this is how you know he's my son, picked Sweet Home Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Hallelujah Chorus, and Universal Sound by Tyler Childers. And so I was like, okay, I can roll with this. But what I've seen, and I coach kids, it's something that we talk about pretty regularly, is we got to get them back to being kids. Get into the pool, go into the swimming hole, running through the fields. I mean, just this is a thing. Think about the last time your feet touched bare grass.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is, I mean, if I'm honest, I think that's one of our big challenges. Is there are plenty of people whose feet never could touch bare grass.
I used to get stung by honeybees all the time.
Yeah, that used to be a thing. You'd step on a bee, or something would bite you.
Yep.
What I've realized is my kids, they're covered up in chiggers and bites and stuff all summer long. Some of their friends are white and have no bites on them.
Yeah.
And
you got to get bit, man.
You got to get out there, man. You just got to get out there and go catch some lightning bugs, do all that kind of stuff, because, that's real. But you know what? We got to take a break. When we come back, Tim Estes should be here, and we are going to really get into the AI. And trust me, guys, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
3:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We're tracking the potential for severe weather tonight in Middle Tennessee. Channel 4's Melanie Layden on the timeline.
Well, it's going to be tonight. It's going to be a long night for us here, because we're going to see some of these moving in around dinner time and really not getting out of here until just after midnight, probably about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we'll give you more during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Got some breaking news coming out of our nation's capital. The Supreme Court has voted 7-2 to extend its block on the Trump administration's ability to carry out the Alien Enemies Act deportations. And here in Tennessee, guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran, both accused of setting up a fake company and approving state contracts, funneling taxpayer money. Both face up to 20 years in prison when sentenced in a few months. The judge allowed their release until then. Right now in New Orleans, Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick says one inmate that escaped from the largest prison, the main prison there in New Orleans this morning, has been recaptured, but the rest are still on the loose.
This is an urgent and a serious situation. Please be mindful. Please be mindful.
Yeah, 11 inmates discovered missing this morning around 8:30 during the head count. 10 still out there. At least one of the inmates has been charged with attempted murder. They say they should be considered armed and dangerous. And authorities in Northern California say a teenager here in Tennessee helped thwart a mass shooting half a country away. Tehama County Sheriff Dave Kane says on May 9th, that kid here in Tennessee called to report someone from his online gaming community was detailing plans for an alleged mass shooting at the Evergreen Middle School in Cottonwood, California.
This young man had the courage and heroic instincts to call our agency and notify us in order to mitigate any possible threat to our citizens and particularly our young people.
Yeah, he says the teen in Tennessee turned over photos and other evidence. Police arrested 2 teenagers in Tehama County, ages 14 and 15, on multiple charges, including criminal threats and manufacturing destructive devices. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, drivers over on the East Loop going eastbound. TDOT says the right lane is blocked by a crash there at James Robertson Parkway. Then in Glencliff, left lane blocked, TDOT says, by a crash. That's going to be 40 eastbound past Spence Lane. By the airport, the left lane blocked by a crash 40 westbound under Briley Parkway. And then I-40 westbound after Bellevue. Police reporting a crash there. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You click the red. Well, Mason, that's pretty intense. I mean, welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith in for Matt Murphy, and I have got a treat for you. I have Tim Estes, formerly the founder and leader of Digital Reasoning. Tim was a fellow Brentwood Academy Eagle. He was thinking about AI and unstructured data analytics before we had the headlines that it was actually a thing. So we've got a subject matter expert here who is thinking about this revolution. I mean, this next evolution of our economy, of our society. And I'm very excited to have somebody here who's a homegrown talent and somebody who understands this deeply. He is now running Angel Q. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about what that is, why it matters. But a round of applause for Tim Estes.
Well, thanks for having me on, Cam. This is a bit of a dream of mine. I grew up listening to this station. I'm a Nashville boy from way back. Family actually goes back to the founding of the city.
Really?
Yeah. So Curry's in the Hills and others, it's all family. So yeah, I've been really blessed to watch Nashville go from being like a great, small, grounded place to grow up in to like this potentially world-impacting city that we're becoming.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And yeah, I remember taunting people in Washington, D.C. in the early 2010s about move to Nashville. There's no traffic there.
Well,
and then, that didn't age well, did it?
It did not age well.
So we kind of grew out of the like comfortable phase. And now we're in the kind of cool, but slightly uncomfortable growth phase. And hopefully we'll catch up to it, but still, it's always been home.
Well, tell me a little bit about, so when we talk about Nashville, the first like economic business engine that comes to mind is healthcare. People say, oh, healthcare. But one of the things that we don't talk about as much is software and technology.
Yeah.
That's absolutely kind of where we are. Tell me a little bit about, just so we can kind of establish your background a little bit, what led you to start thinking about AI? Where'd you come up with the idea for digital reasoning? What was sort of the flight path there to where you are right now?
Well, so I'll start with where it really started, which is when I was growing up. My grandmother actually ran a bakery here in town called Rocking Chair Square, and it was in all the Hill stores. And my first job was actually delivering bread, like in a van. Really cool thing for a kid to do.
Nothing quite like a bread van.
Not great for the diet either, especially when it tastes that good. And like I was the, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid that would go figure out the computers, like set up the K-Pros and set up the other stuff. And, I kind of became that guy. And then, I got kind of, this is not a widely known story, but like I kind of got pulled into some political things, back in 94 when Fred Thompson came and talked to Brentwood Academy. And I started volunteering as a 14-year-old. And I got to know the family a little bit. And I remember there was one summer where they had a big computer issue. They had the mailing list vanish, which in 94, you lose your mailing list.
That's a big deal.
That's
you're
a
in trouble.
big deal. And so his son, one of his sons, I won't name which one, came like to my mom's house, to our house, like in Green Hills, and just knocked on the door. It's like, is Tim around? And so I get taken down by one of the siblings to like help go find this. And I figured it out and found it. And so I was always this like on-demand IT geekish kind of guy, and I wear that a bit with like pride. But then I got into like philosophy when I was at UVA, which sounds a little odd. My mom, who just recently passed away, my mom, when I told her I wanted to go from being an engineer to being a philosopher, she's like, I was looking at the classified ads last week, and
very few jobs.
There's so many jobs for philosophers. I mean, she had fun with it. And I said, Mom, you know what, like. When I get there, I will figure it out and probably, create something. And ironically, she and I co-founded Digital Reason together, which isn't as widely known. She actually came up with the name. Because in 2000, when we came up with Digital Reasoning, artificial intelligence was in such a deep winter. And so essentially...
What do you mean by that? Like deep winter?
So in the history of the artificial intelligence, like creation of it from like the 1950s, which is where it dates back to, people like Marvin Minsky and some other like very prominent like people in computer science, there's been windows of time when everyone thought this giant disruptive breakthrough was coming and we'd have AI.
Right.
And then it would disappoint.
Right.
And when it disappointed, everyone who got their hopes up are like, this is never going to work. It's all charlatan stuff. And that's an AI winter.
Okay.
And we've had 2 or 3 of those, and I mean, maybe even more, but at least 2 or 3 big ones in that 70 years. And, 2000, dot-com crash, and, essentially no AI showing up anywhere that's doing anything interesting. Those 2 things together, AI winner. And of course, that's when I want to found an AI company. Yeah. And so we had to call the company Digital Reasoning because it was a synonym. Think about it, digital reasoning for AI without saying AI. Yeah. And so that came about because when I was doing like my studies in like philosophical theology, actually, and focused in like philosophy of language, I cared a lot about the idea of finding order. I'm a Christian. I grew up in the church here, grew up at Covenant.
Yeah.
And I believe there was an order, like essentially underneath like all this language, because I believe it was designed. And I thought that if you could just study it the right way and learn from it, you would find this order. And that would help you construct machines that could adapt and learn from language.
Yeah.
And so the company became a bit of a proof of the philosophy.
Right.
And it came from a perspective of like, we have to be very thoughtful to look at the way words are used in context over time to be able to kind of predict from that space of word usage. And that's not like a random Darwinian thing. The reason it actually does work is because, humans have minds and our creator had a mind. And those minds that create those words and those structures has this information embedded in everything that's written. And we just needed the algorithms to tease that out. And then ChatGPT comes along 22 years later and, feel fairly vindicated on this one now.
Well, so what did digital reasoning ultimately do?
Yeah. So back then we were dealing with digital reasoning was originally like, it was founded on 3 like ideas, almost like maxims. Someday all software would learn.
Right.
Software that didn't learn would be commoditized. And everyone should own software that learns. Kind of like futurist, a little bit off the reservation kind of ideas in 2000.
Yeah.
Now all kind of obvious, except the last one. The last one will be later in this conversation, which is everyone owning software that learns, because that's the debate now, whether you own it or somebody owns you with it. And so what that meant is we turned into originally like, okay, could we make software that could like make websites smarter by understanding human language? And then 9/11 hits. And 9/11 hits, and it's like, wow, we couldn't connect the dots and all these people died. And like, what if the next time it's with some nuclear weapon or it's with some other like, dirty bomb or something? So there was this big pull to like turn on a dime and apply it to make sense of all this data. And that's where I spent like a decade plus. And my founding partner, I've got 4 founders, and one of them, Josh Thurman, the COO, like he had a similar kind of thing, but he went and became a Navy SEAL and a hero, and an amazing guy. You've met him, you spent time with him. Also a Brentwood Academy alum. And so yeah, long story short is like, I was always a geek. So I was going to be a geek trying to serve. Like I couldn't go like run down bad guys, but I could work with some very smart people in Army intelligence and then other places essentially to figure out this problem with the kind of algorithm to make sense of this data that we were working through, looking at, the way words were used. And basically the way to think about it is you go to another country where you don't know the language.
Right.
Maybe it's France and you really just don't know that much French. You've heard a few things in the movies. And you're going to eat, and so they give you a menu, and you kind of like listen around and you listen a little bit. And if you're there for one day, you're probably just speaking English and embarrassing yourself just like I would, and trying to like make it through. Now, if you're there for months though, and you're listening, you start figuring things out. You start basically noticing, oh, that sound comes after this sound and it maps to that word.
Right.
And
you notice the patterns.
That you build the patterns of it. And what you're doing is you're actually figuring out the error in replacing a symbol with another symbol and minimizing that. And if you do that over and over and over again, that sort of minimization of error of predicting the next symbol, then you can actually build up a whole model that is good at predicting what comes next. And as we'll get to later, like that's really what these language models do now. We just were doing a very primitive version of it because we had 1/10,000th of hardware. And so we were just solving a specific thing like, give me a bad guy's name, okay, Abu al something. And like Abu al-Masri, okay, there's probably like 10,000 Abu al-Masris. And most of them are like innocent dads or sons that were being victimized as bad or worse than our own troops were. And we wanted to keep those people safe. And we wanted to find the one or two Abu al-Masris that need to be removed from the face of the earth.
Right.
Right. And so we fused our technology to try to separate the false positives, all these other things, because the systems were really dumb when we came in. And it wasn't like, that's not a slam on the DoD, just that technology was early and we had a different way to solve it. So that became pretty prolific. And we got to run that across a lot of places. I got an investment from the intelligence community's venture capital arm, and then it went other places that I won't talk about here. And it was a really amazing adventure, to be in your 20-something with like this above top secret clearance, running around to all these guys that are, trying to connect unbelievable amounts of data and get it to our forward deployed troops before like a bomb blows up or something.
Right. Well, so when we come back, I want to talk to folks on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. The phone lines are open. I'm going to fire some questions at Tim and just say, sort of, where are we? What does all this mean? What can we do about it? What do we need to watch out for? But I want to get to you guys in your questions, too. I told you he was smarter than us. But we'll be back with Tim Estes. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The timeline for potentially dangerous weather in Middle Tennessee. Guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of a former Tennessee speaker and chief of staff. SCOTUS blocking the Trump administration's plan for deportations. These stories and more coming up at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith with my good friend Tim Estes here of Angel Q. We're talking about AI and what it means for you. And on the SuperDog text line, 615-737-9986, we 8574 said, "Oh my goodness, is this the guy who they base person of interest on? Wow. Watch if you haven't." Tim, what say you?
Well, I don't think so, but
that's good.
So I'm
that's
just going to. So just but what was weird when that show came out was there was a lot, and I was surprised that it kind of was put forward the way it was. I loved that show. There's just something about watching Jesus go kick a lot of butt that's really cool. That was really kind of fun. I mean, Jim Caviezel's an amazing actor, and so yeah, I thought there's a lot of actually very forward-looking issues in that. And if I was going to jump to the conclusion, if we get into a real deep AI conversation, that show got there with realizing it's ultimately just going to be competition between good AI and bad AI. You can't stop it from coming.
So that may be the opening to the conversation in the next hour. That give me a rough definition of good AI and bad AI.
Well, so I think of it this way, which is good AI is aligned to human beings, which means it respects them and it augments them. Okay. And AI is, it is more like electricity than not. I mean, it's basically just a lot of math when you really strip it down. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about a way it's being applied. And it's being applied by a person or a company or something else. And so it's really the values and ethics of that party that drive it to be good or bad. And so if you look at good AI, that would be AI that's actually trying to make you healthier, make you actually make decisions that give you more happiness. What's bad AI? Let's put the contrast. Yeah. Bad AI views you as a means to an end. Most of social media today is running bad AI on you every day, because for it's like a vampire sucking your attention out because they can monetize it at immense rates. And they've made trillion-dollar companies doing it. So bad AI already has a great example. And the worst AIs will be things that are deceiving people, things that are actively trying to harm them, like viruses that are powered by AI and can adapt and are very hard to shut down. So there are different extremes of it. But the most prominent examples of good and bad AI is, I think there are efforts going on in healthcare trying to use good AI. One is a company called Lirio here in town that Martin and Herring runs that's trying to use good AI, I think, to nudge people behaviorally to do better things.
Well, I like that. So, and I want to hear, you've given us the example, so I think we know who they are of the bad AI and sort of us being the product, right? Us being enslaved by AI versus us using AI to make life better. We've got several hours. We've got Tim Estes of Angel Q talking AI with us for the next hour. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Digging the landing.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We are tracking the potential for severe weather in Middle Tennessee. We're under the gun until around 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. It is at least a level 3 out of 5 risk for everyone in Middle Tennessee, and then a 4 out of 5 risk for everyone along and north of I-40. Channel 4 is predicting the first storms. We could see some storms around dinner time, but then that's going to intensify if they do develop around 10 o'clock tonight and then not be out of here until after 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we'll have to keep an eye on it for you. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassada and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran. They were accused of setting up a fake company, then approving state contracts for taxpayer dollars. Channel 4's Stacey Cameron, he's covered that trial every day.
Both men now face up to 20 years in prison. And as I mentioned, the jury's verdicts were read first as to Cassada, the former Speaker of the House. His wife was in the courtroom, and when the verdict guilty was read to that first conspiracy count, his wife began to weep openly in court and cried softly throughout the reading of all 19 charges. When that was finally done, it was the first emotion we saw from Cassada. He looked up from his seat at the defendant's table, looked over at his wife, tears in his eyes as well. When the verdicts were finished being read with Cade Cothran, his attorneys just sat there in disbelief, shaking their heads.
So both men are released until sentencing in September. The U.S. Supreme Court blocking the Trump administration today from deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. Two justices dissented, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. And Republicans in Congress are finding it difficult to align behind the big, beautiful bill that would expand the 2017 tax cuts and make significant changes to safety net programs such as Medicaid. Today, 5 members of the GOP voted not to advance that bill in the House Budget Committee. Talks will continue through the weekend. The House Budget Committee to reconvene Sunday night to try again. Right now in New Orleans, the police chief appealing for the public's help in an urgent manhunt for dangerous prisoners who escaped from the main prison there. Orleans Parish Sheriff Susan Hudson at the afternoon press conference.
It's almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible for anybody to get out of this facility without help from the outside. We intend to find out exactly what happened.
Prisoners reported missing during the routine head count at 8:30 Central Time this morning. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, TDOT says there's a crash blocking the right lane, the eastbound East Loop downtown at Shelby Avenue. Then in Glencliff, TDOT says the right lane blocked by a crash 40 eastbound past Spence Lane. TDOT says there's something in the road that is blocking 40 westbound at Golden Bear Gateway and Beckwith Road there in Mount Juliet. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Sometime with Matt's intro music, I feel like I'm getting shouted at. When he says, come on, it's very loud.
I think that's intentional.
I think you're right, Mason. I'm here with Tim Estes of Angel Q. He is a subject matter expert when it comes to AI. And I want to get to some of y'all's questions in just a second. Before the break, he was talking about the good AI and some examples here in town. Tell me more about the bad AI. What we talked about social media, these other things. How does that really work?
So I'll give 3 like rapid fire examples of
Sure.
bad AI just to make it really visceral.
Okay.
So the first one was what maybe kind of launch Angel Q, which is TikTok's For You algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
It is designed essentially to keep feeding videos that keep you engaged. And with kids, it figured out that videos like blackout challenges and various other challenges kept kids engaged. And so in Philadelphia, it fed that to a 10-year-old girl named Nyla Anderson, who was a smart girl, spoke 3 languages, went to charter school, gymnastics, just watching silly music videos,
Right.
dancing videos on
Like
TikTok.
kids do, yeah.
Right? Because it was musically, that's what it was. TikTok bought them, and that's how they got here. Well, it serves up this blackout challenge to her, and she never looked for it. This is where the evil comes in. It's not serving up the human request. It was putting something in front of this girl to manipulate her. So she gets manipulated. She goes to the closet, hangs herself up by her mother's purse, emulating this challenge, this choking challenge, and she suffocates herself. And her mother comes home and finds her, takes her to the hospital, dies 5 days later.
Wow.
And she was not alone. There were several others. Matthew Miner, another young boy in Maryland. I've met the dad. I've done wall-to-wall like congressional meetings with his dad, walking the halls of Congress, supporting Senator Blackburn's Kids Online Safety Act, which I'm a very strong supporter of. And so that's a great example of evil AI. You want another evil AI? I went into the Congress last January 24 with a lot of House leadership staff, and I basically said there is a CSAM, so child sexual abuse material. We used to call it kid porn, but it's called CSAM generally now. Like there is a CSAM apocalypse that is underway right now because AI can generate the images by taking where you posted your kid online in social media and turning it into a pornographic image and now a 4K video of that. And I told them this was coming last.
Man, I didn't even
So-
think that was a thing. I get it. I understand it now,
Yeah.
but wow.
I mean, yeah. So essentially, like Meta started open sourcing these models that I think tipped the Chinese off on how to build them. The Chinese started building out their big open source models, like the DeepSeek one that dropped in January, and they obviously emulated and copied the video generation models. That Sora, that was the first big one that came out of OpenAI like last spring. And when it happened, I said, there's going to be an open source version, meaning it's out in the open. People can rebuild it, take the safeties off within 6 months, and then they'll tweak it 3 to 6 months later. We're going to have essentially engines that can build 4K porn of children. And that's going on right now.
Wow.
And so I will not let faces of my kids online. I tell everyone, like a friend of mine, do not put your kid's face online. And I don't even know quite how to stop it. And so, like, you might have seen the viral clip with like Tim Tebow and Sean Ryan, I know this week, where so Tebow goes and basically shows this just scary map of how much downloading of child sexual abuse material is going on, like in this country. And it is shocking. And so I'm not going to divert us entirely in this one, but that is obviously evil. That's
no
that's
kidding.
corrupting someone. So there's evil that's trying to use your attention to make people money. There's evil trying to exploit people, but all evil tends to start from the same place, viewing human beings as a means to an end instead of an end in themselves. And when you find a company doing it or you find individuals doing it with AI, you're going to lead into evil, abusive things.
Yeah. So this is where I encountered Tim again, was with Angel Q, and it was interesting to me. I was invited by our mutual friend to a dinner to talk about and learn about this. So what are we here in Nashville? What are you guys doing to combat that, to say, no, this attention treadmill, this thing that's coming to eat our kids? How do y'all respond to that?
So when I got the Nyla Anderson story sent to me by a friend of mine, it was one of those like not in my country, not in my world kind of moments. Like you get angry, you get angry and you get upset because I got two boys,
Right.
6 and 9, and I believe that this should be a much better world than that for them, just like most probably the parents listening on this line now. And I said, can I put an AI between every child on the internet that actually works for the parent? That was the idea. And so we went and built that. And Angel Q essentially is all about replacing search, which search is the gateway to find everything good and bad, right? And what's so interesting is search is getting eaten by AI right now with Perplexity and OpenAI. Even Eddie Q at Apple, very senior executive, came out and said this, that AI is going to replace search. And Alphabet stock like dumped that day. And so like it's becoming obvious, but it was obvious to me back in 22 that was how this was going to play out. And so I said, what if we built that for kids and we used the fact that we could have something new that was trusted, like for kids aligned with the parents, so that they wouldn't encounter all this bad stuff. So it's really trying to essentially replace the search engine, but by giving like an AI app to the kid that goes and answers their questions, does it in age-appropriate ways. It knows what questions not to answer and to defer to you, to the parent. And so we taught it to do that, and we put these extensive safeguards so it doesn't put anything appropriate. So that was the big epiphany. The second big is that the big breakthrough of AI, like one of the big ones the last 5 years, is translating between languages.
Yeah.
I've seen demos of this. Like it's amazing. You can do like real-time English to Chinese, speaking live, and it's like human-level translation. The epiphany we had is you could translate things into kid. You could say, oh, I'm not translating from English and Spanish or English and Chinese. I'm translating from 28-year-old English to 8-year-old girl English.
Wow.
And that's what Angel Q does. And so that opens up another door because kids are curious. And it's also interesting that this is how we operate as parents, right?
Yeah, you talk to your kids in a different...
Well, they come up with something. You're like, well, where did you hear about that? And frankly, we know it's a losing strategy to say, well, I'll talk to you about that when you're 14.
Right.
No,
then they definitely want to know.
Then they're all over it. They are digging in on that stuff. And so what we realized is, what do we do as parents? They bring up something that's mildly inappropriate or some word. I could be specific in this. I think in the dinner yet, someone said, like, what's my body count? And that's a slang term that most people know what that is. And like your little girl comes home and puts that out because she's heard it from some older friend or something. And now you got to like figure a way to explain that. Well, what we figured out is that you can actually have an AI translate all content to be age appropriate on the fly. And the ones that parents need to take ownership of, we can defer that. And that allows parents to have awareness of their child in a way that they probably don't right now. And what's interesting is kids will more openly talk to an AI and go find stuff on machines.
Yeah, I mean, I see
this. By it.
I see this at my house with Alexa.
Yeah.
But like the logs, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's logs of what your kids, I keep recordings of what my kids ask Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
And they will sooner ask Alexa a tough question than me.
That's right. That's totally the behavior.
They'll eventually get around to coming to me, but they're like, look, this is a resource that is not going to have any feedback loop. What if dad gets upset? What if, it's a weird question I should know? I don't know. It's nothing. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just, I'm curious. I have questions. I feel a little weird asking mom or dad. So technology. And if you don't think your kid's doing this right now, I can promise you that they are.
100% they're doing it. What's so funny is that the cheat code that's come up as we've had these families take on Angel Q is the parents use it because the kids will ask them a question and the parent kind of knows the answer but not really, and they want to act authoritative. And so it's like, hey, let's go ask Angel.
Yeah.
And it comes back with this really great answer that's appropriate. And it's like, isn't that interesting? Oh, yeah. And then the parent doesn't ever kind of have to maybe like they didn't really know before they asked the question.
Well, the most confusing thing to me in a while was Ohio. Why Ohio was just a reference for kind of stupid. And they're like, Dad, that's so Ohio. And I'm like, guys, skibbity toilet. I'm like, what are we even talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple questions before we get to the break. I want to hold on the education one. But Larry asked, well, the one thing that all of us who've seen Terminator want to know is, when does AI become self-aware? Does it become self-aware? What does that mean for us?
So I'm skeptical that it becomes self-aware like the sci-fi movies like typically depict it. What I think happens is it gets deeper and deeper in its programming to go take action, and that starts to create something that substitutes for motivation. And what that means is that you could set up a motivation. Like there's a classic book by a guy, a researcher out of Oxford named Bostrom, and he talks about like the rogue paperclip machine. Essentially, an AI that's built to make paperclips and be the best in the world, and its only objective is to make paperclips. And what happens is it figures out all these ways to turn absolutely everything into paperclips, including every human being on the planet. So it is a simple assignment without safeguards that runs amok, and it ends up having traumatic consequences. I think that's more the risk to mitigate than it is that this kind of other intelligence is going to emerge that's human-like. In fact, one of the big issues in the technology space is a lot of people in technology, and this is, I think, really true of Google if you dig into it, they're called transhumanists.
What?
Transhumanists. And what they basically believe that they can build an AI which is superior to any human being, and then we should obey it as a matter of goodness.
Because it's a godlike intelligence.
That's right. It's actually Tower of Babel all over again, but with AI. And so it's building it up to be a source of power, and it's almost religious. And Ray Kurzweil, who was head of AI at Google for a long time, like in his book, like, The Coming Singularity, like that's his end game. And they have a rational argument for it in terms of, well, you'll have more longevity, more peace, but you're sacrificing all of the essence of human freedom. And the truth is, like, it sounds to me, it's like the communist like kind of thing that, if just we give all our power to the government, it's going to make everything better for us. And then you find out, guess what? Humans run the power, and humans just with more power tend to do terrible things.
Yeah.
I think it'll be the same with AI. If we have it be all centralized and we have it be under the control of like 3 giant corporations, like we have this kind of AI under control of a country right now. It's called China.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how they keep that population in line with like social credit and some of these sort of ways of using AI to actually shape society and keep any dissent like from happening. And I think that to me is like the more likely kind of thing that happens is it either runs awry down a path that we set it on and we did a bad job because, Silicon Valley move fast and break things.
Right.
This is not the area we want to move fast and break things. We want to move thoughtfully and kind of quick, but we want to have certain guardrails on it.
Yeah,
and,
well, we don't want to be the thing that ends up being broken.
Who wants to be a paperclip? I don't want to be a paperclip.
I do not want to be a human paperclip. We got to take a break. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Former Tennessee Speaker and his former Chief of Staff found guilty of public corruption. And right now in New Orleans, authorities are investigating if the escape this morning of several prison inmates from their main prison is an inside job. These stories and more at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Matt Murphy. I have Tim Estes here of Angel Q, a subject matter expert on AI. And man, you guys on the SuperDoc text line, 615-737-9986, are now flooding in with the questions, and I really appreciate it. And so I want to get to those. Mike has been patient. First, I wanted to tell Jason, I raised my pinky for you, but you guys made fun of me the last time I was on here and drinking out of a champagne flute. This is not moonshine, but it is a mason jar. So
wait,
this
you took
is
my jar?
Sorry, Mason.
Dang it.
This is mine now. But thank you, Jason, for noticing. And when you said pinky's out, I lifted it high for you, my friend. So, Mike, you have been patient. We're coming to you right now. Mike, what's your question?
Yeah, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah, I want to ask your guest if he remembers a movie, and this is the AI question. Does he remember a movie back in the late 1960s about two supercomputers that got together and they merged and they decided to shut systems down because humans became too inefficient?
Yeah.
And there was no way to shut them down. Does he remember that movie?
Yeah, I remember the movie. I am struggling with, was it Colossus was the name of the computer in that movie, I think?
I think that's it, Colossus.
Yeah, I think it was the Colossus Project or something. But yeah, I do remember that. It's a kind of a classic laying out, a not totally unrealistic scenario if you design badly.
It says Colossus, the Forbin Project?
That's it, the Forbin Project. That's it, yep.
Sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to step on you.
Like I said, that was 60 years ago that was made. And it's almost like AI today. It's like, are these new computers and all these AI systems, they're going to get together and then prevent us from, because I remember in the movie, you couldn't even shut it down. If you tried to shut it down, you were killed. Yeah. And they had cameras in everybody's house. They had cameras on every corner, which we do have today.
It's true.
And all this information was being gathered about humans. So is that where we're going?
Yeah, well, thanks, Mike, for your question. The movie was called the Colossus, the Forbin Project. So what say you? Actually, before you answer, Tim, a couple other people have said similar things. Patrick said, have you seen the video of the two AI programs talking to each other, encrypted, where nobody can decipher what's being communicated between them? Is that legit, or is that just social media? Go.
No, it's legit. I mean, if you understand the math going on behind these language models, I mean, what they're doing is they're figuring out the way, like the next. So one of the people, Ilya, he was the chief scientist at OpenAI. He said it this way, which is, if a system can truly predict the next word that comes out, it has to understand the whole world around it that would lead to that prediction.
Right.
And that's why they think that this current architecture can do this. Now, I'm a little more skeptical.
This is sort of like butterfly effect, right? Like if you have all of this information leading to this moment, then you can kind of predict the future.
Well, it means that they're prescribing a lot of depth and context that's much more like a human level intelligence, like to the model in that idea. And so what, just like I gave that example earlier about like learning a foreign language by just being immersed in it. Well, these systems can move at the speed, of light and at the speed of, massive parallel compute, which means they can go through that process of figuring out like a new language, in seconds or less. Like what would take us hundreds of years could be compressed into seconds. And so it would be straightforward if like you want to create a cipher, basically a code, and then go ahead and re-encode everything into that, especially when you have a giant memory that has every public code that's ever been out there. Yeah. So it might just be putting together variations of a previous code, like Morse code plus 7 other things into some hybrid on the fly. Just like when it does research and it writes it for you, like when that write-up is done, like it's both original but also synthesized from everything it's ever read.
Well, so what does this mean? I had a couple of folks ask about, voice verification with banks and obviously for national security, you've got codes. You're speaking in code, sending information in code. Well, these AIs can basically unwind a lot of that very, very efficiently and quickly. How do you have secure systems when you have AIs trying to, break all of them?
Well, because AIs will be doing the new encoding. And so it's like a cops versus robbers thing. I mean, it's just escalation. And so I'm less worried about that problem because these systems that create those codes today will be upgraded with these same technologies, and it'll be a competition of resources. The only real seismic event coming is when they get a quantum computer that is of a certain scale. They haven't quite got there yet, but sometime in the next 3 to 7 years, they probably will. And that computer, the way it's designed, can run like an infinite set of things in parallel, just the nature of the device. And that will crack all our legacy encryption. But there are new ways of encryption that are resilient to that. Okay, so we're
just going to keep evolving.
That's right. And so it isn't that this is going to make everything backward looking, gone or bad. I think that's looking at it as stationary. The real question is, does something run amok? Does it get going with too many resources and you just can't turn it off? Which is why the Colossus thing was kind of interesting to bring up, because that is a legitimate. I mean, that's the Skynet kind of situation.
You don't want it connected to your weapons system.
It's the Battlestar Galactica stuff. Every single one of these parables we have, especially in sci-fi, ultimately give a computer too much degree of freedom, too much resources, and not enough safeguards, and it runs amok.
But let me push back on that and kind of get your thoughts, and then we'll answer it on the other side of the break. So what's the consequence of not engaging a weapon system to an AI? Because you've got folks that are going to obviously say they've seen Terminator. They know that's bad. Well, what if China says, no, ours it's connected to this AI. You're saying it's bad too. What's the consequences of that? We'll answer that on the other side of the break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we are tracking the potential for severe weather here in Middle Tennessee tonight. It is a level 3 out of 5 risk for everyone. Level 4 out of 5 risk for everyone along and north of I-40, including downtown Nashville. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Money news, Moody's Ratings just downgraded the United States debt today. Its last perfect credit rating. The move could rattle financial markets and push up interest rates. The jury in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran, returned guilty verdicts this morning. Channel 4's Stacey Cameron reports.
Well, both men are certain to appeal the law that was given to the jury today, but sentencing will now take place in a couple of months after a federal probation report is read. Both men just moments ago asked the judge to release them while they pending the sentencing hearing, and the judge granted that, even though there were some issues that the prosecution raised to whether or not Cothran should be released. Both men will be released pending that sentencing.
Cassida and Cothran faced multiple charges related to funneling taxpayer money to a fake company through state contracts. Right now in New Orleans, authorities are investigating if the escape of several inmates from the main prison there is an inside job.
We have indication that these detainees received assistance in their escape from individuals inside of our department, and the escape was discovered during a routine head count at 8:30 a.m. this morning.
That's Orleans Parish Sheriff Susan Hudson, who says 6 of the 9 prisoners still on the run face first or second degree murder or attempted murder charges or were convicted of murder there in New Orleans. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Donaldson, police reporting a crash, Briley Parkway southbound at Elm Hill Pike. Downtown, TDOT says the right lane is blocked eastbound at Shelby Avenue over on the East Loop. Then in Madison, police reporting a crash 65 northbound at Old Hickory Boulevard. At Hadley Park, police reporting a crash 40 eastbound after Jefferson Street, then 40 westbound at Spence Lane. And in Hermitage, got a crash at Old Hickory Boulevard, just north of Lebanon Pike. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm here with my friend Tim Estes, and we've been talking AI. Y'all have a number of questions that have popped up, and I want to get to several of those. What do you think the impacts of AI are on things like curing cancer?
So I'm going to bullish on this one. I mean, I think that our process of researching a lot of these things and the expense of it, we'll see a 1 to 2 order of magnitude, 100x change in this probably in the next 5 to 7 years. And I think that it's going to open up the ability to understand disease and understand cause at a level that we've never seen before. And so I know we spend all this time on all the quasi-Terminator scenarios, but we really should give a balanced view that there is a lot of goodness coming. And there is a lot of positive impacts for humanity.
So tell me on it. I mean, that's where a lot of folks are, man, a decision-making AI, oh, no, that's bad. I get the fear. I understand that because we all saw Terminator. Tell me the good stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're both users of this, but earlier this year, both OpenAI and then Google and then now others come out with kind of a deep research capability. Yeah. And to me, this is so the original ChatGPT was kind of a killer app. The 4 one was a better, smarter one. But I didn't see anything that was really a killer app until I saw this thing show up this year, which is basically instead of doing search is so dead now. Yeah. You basically give a description of what it is you want to understand and look for. And these things, the Google will go after 200 sources and weave it all together and cite it and give you this great sort of initial starting point to go after. And something that would take hours, weeks even, for some of these things. And now it's at your fingertips. And so I think properly used, we're about to level up the intelligence of the whole world in very powerful ways. Now, I said if properly used. This is where I guess I sound too much like an academic, is you always have these caveats in it. If you basically turn it into the next Google Maps, which is just turn left, turn right, well, then you have a different problem, which is the AI essentially directing us to its version of the truth. And it may be immensely persuasive and really wrong. It's kind of hard, too, because in my own experience, using various ones, Grok is one a lot of people on the right are kind of rooting for because it's Elon and whatnot. And yet I find it so convincingly makes stuff up that's not true. Yeah. And then, of course, the Gemini one got kind of outed a while back of being kind of, quote, woke. I'll use that terminology in it. And the interesting thing is, it's they kept refining it, and it seems to do a lot better job of actually not hallucinating. So what I think is we have to separate a little bit of, bias, which might be from the people building it, from call it the sophistication and the quality of the technology, which should always drive toward accurate stuff coming over. But that to me is the biggest game changer. It's the idea that I can move from search, which went from being really useful to being immensely wasteful. Yes. I mean, think about Google. Let's do our Wayback Machine. Google was originally the top 10 list was just nails it most of the time, and it would give you page after page. Now 5 of the first 10 are all ads. Right. They might be the site you're looking for, but they're putting up there to make money. Ish. Yeah. I mean, they turned the whole internet into Vegas, right? And so all these content sites, I feel for them, they're trying to get value out of the content, and they put billboard after billboard and flashy stuff up, and it's just a bad experience. I really hope that one thing that AI is going to be able to do is we have these agents replace websites and replace programs, which I think we're doing over the next 3 or 4 years. This is going to go faster than anyone thinks.
So you think websites dead, SEO dead?
Yeah, I think it's all toast. I think SEO is already dying this year. It's going down fast. And so I think that what we have to start thinking about is how do we create an economy where hopefully every person, every family, every child is working with Angel Q has their own agent, their own AI on their side, trying to figure out what works for them, and then the producer. So that's a consumer, and there's the producers. And the producers essentially have their AIs, like Ford. And I can envision a world where Ford's AIs are out looking for people who are earnestly looking for a truck.
Right.
Okay. And they have, and the AI knows you really well. So it knows exactly the kind of truck you want, exactly how much range you'd pay. And they come up like a marketplace. It looks just like an exchange. And they come and they start talking and they figure out, oh, well, you're basically looking for this truck, but we're, $15K over. All right. I'll give you a $6K discount to get it in. And the AI assesses, I got to bring that deal back to the master.
Right.
Like, imagine that world working for you in the background all the
Your
time.
AI is your broker.
It is your broker if it's done right because it represents you. It's your consigliere,
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
You have a real Jeeves.
Yeah.
It's no longer Ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
It's just Jeeves.
Yeah. So or Alfred rocks. So I think that is one of the potential visions. And the challenge is the people with the tech right now, they built the last 20 plus years of the internet essentially on an attentional economy, grabbing your attention, selling it to the highest bidder, and then actually creating more supply. And this is what gets us into the kids and safety issue. The reason why the Snaps, the Instagrams, Meta with Facebook and TikTok, the reason why all these kids that legally should not even be on these things are not stopped is not because it's hard. It's been easy for a decade. Okay.
To stop them from getting access.
Anyone who has a game console, like you had to give a credit card to be able to sign up for these things like Xbox and PlayStation. That was going on in 2012, 2011, maybe even earlier in some cases. Why in the world did Instagram not have that? If it had, there never would have been an under 13-year-old on it ever.
Right.
The only ones allowed would have been the ones blessed by the parent, and the parents would know what they were on and doing. But it was intentionally designed differently to that. Why? That's an audience. But more importantly, that's an audience with a lot of free time. And so they make value number of heads and eyeballs times the amount of time those eyeballs are on stuff. And, following up from Gallup in the fall of 23, these kids are on 8 hours a day now. On average, it's not like, oh, wow, that's an awful.
So you put the kids on the treadmill because the parents are at work and they're busy doing other stuff. The kids are a great target. That's
right. And so this is exploitation at scale. Jonathan Haidt, basically calls
anxious generation.
Yeah, anxious generation. He calls this out recently. Called out like Snapchat as like industrial exploitation of children. And I think that's exactly what's been going on for a long time. And so now we have trillion-dollar companies that are built this way. And Google's kind of like is partially down this dark hole as well, but it's kind of weird because they're kind of a software company too. They just used advertising to fund everything instead of charging us for it. And now they're kind of stuck with that, but they're trying to find a way out. And as I watch and read the tea leaves, Meta has no way out because they're just an exploitation machine. Snap has no way out. It's an exploitation machine. TikTok has no way out. So they will actively try to disrupt and avoid any of these good AIs aligning with you. Okay.
So when we come back on the other side of the break, here's what I want to, the question that kind of synthesizes some of the stuff I'm seeing on the SuperDoc text line. So we've got a company like Angel Q here in Middle Tennessee. You've got companies that are dependent on trillions of dollars of ad revenue. Like it is a massive economy there that they want to retain for as long as possible. How does David beat Goliath here? And how do we, as we go through these transformations, avoid creating new Goliaths? Because I think that's a big part of the problem. We're going to take a break. We'll answer that question when we come back. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The U.S. just lost its last perfect credit rating. Guilty verdicts in the federal public corruption trial of a former Tennessee Speaker of the House and his chief of staff, and several inmates on the run and considered armed and dangerous in New Orleans. These stories and more coming up at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, that's cool. Cool music. We've got about 4 minutes until...
Is that from Chuck? That sounds like it's from Chuck.
Mason says yes.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yep.
We've got a little bit of time with Tim left, and then we'll hang around for about 30 minutes on the other side for those of y'all who are just tuning in to our conversation about AI. The question posed before the break was, you've got these industries that depended on all of us being on an attention treadmill. They made a lot of money. There is a lot.
They're making more today than they ever have.
Right. It is a massive revenue center. So their war chests are full. And a company like Angel Q comes along and says, well, actually, I want to stand between you and the things on the treadmill. How do you, one, go up against Goliath and win?
Mm-hmm.
And two, how do you avoid creating new Goliath?
I think the scale, the scale, and they call it. Let's take the second part of that question. I think creating a new Goliath is less the issue than what's actually driving the Goliath, because I don't believe every company becomes bad at scale.
Sure, that's fair.
And so I think it's all about like what's driving it, what's the values, are they accountable to people? So for instance, with Angel Q, we spend a lot of time on the safety problem, given what we're trying to do, put this thing in front of kids and make sure it's AI that's actually healthy for them and limited, but effective. And so with that in mind, like about a week ago, I was one of 3 co-authors of this national declaration on AI and kid safety. And we got over 60 groups, including John Haidt signed it personally. From Anxious Generation, and then all kinds of groups that represent parents all over this country, and groups like Heritage Foundation, so people on the right, people on the left. And we did that not just because it needed to be said, and I thought it needed to be said, and this was about some of these like chatbots that have been abusing kids online, and really dark stuff. Some by Meta, some by a company called Character AI, which is like being sued in court pretty badly in Florida, for some terrible stuff they allowed to happen. I did it because with Angel Q, I actually was saying to all of them, like, we're accountable to you. Like, by putting ourselves out there, like, if we mess it up, like, you will never let us live it down, and our brand is gone.
Right.
From a startup basis. So, to me, it's existential, like, that we actually follow through on what our values are.
So you do what you say.
Yeah. And so I just want to say the second half. So, I think if you have companies, there are companies that still have good values, creating, good things. I mean, I'll call one out that I think that actually is on the better side of this. Like Amazon's done a really good job with a lot of the things they've given to kids. Some of y'all may have their devices.
Yeah.
And like dramatically more thoughtful and safe than a lot of alternatives.
Yeah. And I'll say as a parent, being able to have access to the queries that my kids are putting into those devices matters deeply to me.
Yep.
Because I know what they're asking, what they're returning, and that they're not trying to play hide the ball. And frankly, working on Capitol Hill and working with some of these companies, I had some companies that just, one company in particular directly told me, your kids are our customer.
Yep.
And so if we damage our relationship with them by giving you more information, then, well, we have a huge problem in the future, to which I said, I am not interested in piloting your technology anymore. You can have it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. So let me transition back to that first part of that question, though, which I think is more like, how do you win? I'll give you a couple of, I think, interesting points of data that is. So, I would bet that maybe 1 out of 100 to 1 out of 1,000 of your listeners knew who OpenAI was,
right?
Like in June of 22, and that demo with no advertising called ChatGPT got used by 100 million people within months. That's the faster proliferation of technology than anything in human history. For things like phones to reach the 100 million people took decades. And you kind of I could go through each one of them, like any of the social networks, like it took them years. So what's interesting is there's no friction now if you have the right thing, okay? So that's the first reason. The second is, things change when behavior changes because the culture wants to change. And right now, we lost the culture because we lost the internet.
Makes sense.
Okay. And I believe that can be relitigated. And Angel Q is about trying to relitigate the piece closest to the younger kids.
Yeah, and I think that is a good answer to how you beat a $1 trillion industry. Because my concern is that they've got the golden goose. They've got the thing that they want to preserve at all cost. And so I'm going to squish something like Angel Q as quickly and as efficiently as possible. How do you deal with the issue of them not giving you, for example, Apple famously says, no access for you. We don't want you to. Let's answer that on the other side of the break.
Yep.
I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Five o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, still tracking the potential for severe weather in Middle Tennessee. We'll tell you more during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Monday news, Moody's Ratings has downgraded the United States debt today, its last perfect credit rating. The move could rattle financial markets and push up interest rates. There's a verdict in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran, accused of setting up a fake company and approving state contracts, pocketing the money.
After 3 weeks of testimony and 4 days of jury deliberations, the jury came back with their verdict. According to a note around 11:25 this morning to the judge, they have found both defendants guilty.
That's Channel 4's Stacey Cameron, who says Cothran was found guilty on 19 charges, Cassida on 17, including aiding and abetting using a fake name. Both men face up to 20 years in prison when they are sentenced in September. The judge allowed them to be released until then. The search is on for 10 inmates who escaped from the main prison in New Orleans. Here's Orleans Parish Sheriff Susan Hudson.
We have indication that these detainees received assistance in their escape from individuals inside of our department, and the escape was discovered during a routine head count at 8:30 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, 6 of the 9 prisoners still on the run face first or second degree murder or attempted murder charges or were convicted of murder. They are believed to be armed and dangerous. Right now in our nation's capital, the Supreme Court's furthering its pause on the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act to remove alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
The unsigned opinion again makes it clear the Supreme Court will not abide the administration sending any more alleged gang members out of the country without the opportunity to first pose a challenge. And in this 7-2 ruling, the justices say 24 hours notice is not enough, that detainees must be given sufficient time and information so they can contact a lawyer and seek relief in court. Exactly how much time will be for lower courts to figure out.
Earlier today, 5 members of the GOP voted not to advance that big, beautiful bill that would expand the 2017 tax cuts and make significant changes to safety net programs such as Medicaid. Talks will continue through the weekend. The House Budget Committee will reconvene Sunday night to try again. A medical breakthrough, gene therapy, saving the life of a critically ill baby, says Sherry Preston.
It's all been a miracle. That's the only way to describe it.
Kyle Muldoon describing the therapy treatment that helped his 9-month-old son, KJ, born with a rare disease. It causes dangerous levels of ammonia in his blood. Doctors at CHOP Children's Hospital of Philadelphia using a first-of-its-kind gene editing tool to remove KJ's faulty DNA. ABC News medical unit's Sony Salzman says, think of your genes as a book, and in some people, there's a typo.
This technology, it can go in and fix that typo.
Now baby KJ is up and laughing. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Donaldson, police say there's a crash Briley Parkway southbound at Elm Hill Pike. In June Lake, Highway Patrol reporting the shoulder blocked by a crash 65 northbound there at exit 55. Then in Rural Hill, police say there's a stalled vehicle on the left shoulder 24 eastbound after Bell Road. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, I really, really appreciate all of you being with us for another hour of the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. I've got my good friend Tim Estes here of Angel Q, and we've been talking AI. How does a small upstart in Middle Tennessee take on the behemoths? And where we wrapped up at the end of last hour was the barriers to entry to trying things are lower than they've ever been. How do you deal, and this is where I wanted to kind of wind up our conversation heading into 5:30, is there's a lot of political ramifications here. Mm-hmm. There's trying to figure out, well, how do we regulate this? What decisions do we make? What do we do? And frankly, the people that are doing this, some of them think the internet is a series of tubes. So how do we deal with the folks that have the interest in keeping us on the treadmill, have a lot of cash to fund lobbyists to go and try to keep us on the treadmill? How do we engage our leaders? What do we do? We're hearing all of this. All the listeners are hearing this, and they're saying things like, well, Terminator was based on 2028. We're seeing this. Like, do we need to get together? Do we need to have a conversation? What does that look like? Like, help me understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a giant national conversation going on this problem. I talked about Jonathan Haidt and Anxious Generation. I think let me give you the cliff notes on that for some of the people here that may not have read it. So the premise of that book is we have this national mental health crisis, which manifests with kids being depressed, committing suicide, doing like various things to their bodies, being able to, being called into eating disorders.
Yeah,
all
deal.
These different pieces at 2 or 3 times the amount of just 10 years ago.
Wow.
Or I guess 15. So what's weird is the inflection point dates back right to exactly the year that between the year that notifications came on the iPhone and then Instagram was bought by Facebook. And so this curve just goes up and to the right after that. And it correlates to the average screen time around that time was probably between maybe 3 to 4 hours, maybe even low as like in the high 2s. and it's like 8.5 now. So what you have to ask yourself is, in what universe is it productive to consume these kinds of applications for 8 hours? This is more than our children spend playing, for sure. More than they spend even paying attention in a classroom, more than they spend sleeping, and that's where part of this time is coming from.
Right.
And the cumulative effects of that, is actually, deeply harming like a whole generation. And so what John Haidt did is he basically pulled together the science around it and then laid out, a set of proposals around it, like to kind of turn this back.
Right.
And like, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million people maybe bought that book now. And so so you have that kind of front. Then on the political side, you've got what Marsha's been doing with the Kids Online Safety Act. I mean, we've been very blessed in Tennessee. We had Senator Corker, who was like one of the best on human trafficking and fighting human trafficking. And then Senator Blackburn has been just an absolute stalwart on kids and tech policy and has worked across the aisle. Like her bill that she built together with Senator Blumenthal, 91-3 last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, and the issue polls like more positively than Santa Claus. So it's like, it's politically, there's a huge will. Now, to your point, this thing was on the course to be passed into law last year. If it had ever gotten a vote in the House, it would have been 350 votes probably.
Right. And
it got out of committee and it was ready to go. And it mysteriously in December didn't go anywhere. And then mysteriously about a few weeks earlier than that, a $10 billion data center got put in Louisiana. So where's the speaker and the majority leader from?
Interesting.
And in fact, it was actually in the speaker's district. And there were these little nitpicky libertarian-ish issues that were being looked at on this thing. And meanwhile, since it didn't pass, we probably don't have a bunch of safeties that would have been forced on these companies for our children, which means there's a body count on kids now from not passing that.
But there's a data center.
The data center, jobs, apparently. But long story short, I think that people are over it. They're sick of it. They want change. It's overwhelmingly popular. I think we'll get it this year. They just reintroduced it on Wednesday. There is an effort by big tech, probably by Meta, to put a little thing in the reconciliation bill this last week, like starting on Monday, where they were going to make it a 10-year moratorium on any regulations touching AI in all the states. So they'd be telling every state, including Tennessee, including Texas, you can't regulate anything about AI at a state level. We can only do the federal level. But they have no federal regulation at federal level. And who knows when they're getting around to it.
Right.
So this was a giant get-out-of-jail-free card coming out of the Commerce Committee, put there by somebody. And thankfully, we've already got like Senator Hawley out there just like throwing it down. We even got Cruz, who's a little sympathetic to the moratorium issue and preemption, saying, I don't think that belongs on reconciliation.
Right.
And so bottom line is it's going to die. It's going to get shot down. If the House was thoughtful about this, they'd pull it right now. 40 attorney generals came out across party lines, sent a letter to the speaker and the majority leader or the minority leader like today, saying like all the reasons this is bad policy. So I think that what's going on is they've been winning. That the big tech guys with all this money, they've been winning and they've had the power. At some point, they become tobacco. At some point, it's like, oh, they're really having a body count here. This is really bad. We have to change this. And I do think at some point they're going to end up with a reckoning that probably is reform laws or something else.
I think it's going to, I mean, just to be blunt, I think it's going to be the master settlement agreement with tobacco. I think the AGs in the states are going to go after these companies, and through discovery, we're going to find some really ugly stuff that you knew that this was happening to these kids because of the product you made. And I'm not anti-technology. I'm anti-exploitation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm against bad guys. I've been against bad guys for 25 years. And, frankly, having hundreds of billions of dollars doesn't like disqualify that. Like, if anything, you should be wondering, what did I do to end up with this kind of blessing instead of how do I maintain all this at the expense of other human beings and children?
Yeah.
And so I think that we're, like I said, I'm an optimist on this, despite kind of being very frustrated. I mean, once you've met all these parents who've lost their kids, like you just hold yours closer. And I think that I can't imagine and look in the mirror and think about like how I can't imagine being the person that rationalizes that or working in the companies that do. But they're going. I do not believe they will win. Like I said, I'm still a believer that justice, while long kind of denied, or long delayed, is not going to be fully denied. And I believe that part of relitigating all this is, instead of Meta being at, what is it, $600 something a share, no, $650 or whatever. And I saw a report saying it's going to go to like 800 and change, like on CNBC this morning. Like, that should be down at $100 or $200 because that's probably the value of it or less, because we should be on it an hour a day at most.
Right.
Right.
But because your kids are hooked to it.
Yeah, that's right. And so the thing I want to kind of leave with the audience, especially on this, is if you think about technology, let's step back.
Yep.
The promise of technology in a civilization is to make us more productive and to augment our capacity to create and build. The monetization engine of the internet, this attentional one, has actually done the opposite over 20 years. It has used up more of our time, given us less for it,
made us
and
dumber.
made us a lesser version of ourselves. And so, like, I didn't want that to play out for my kids or for anybody's kids,
Right.
which is why, like, we're building Angel Q, is we're going down the road of how do we make something that's different, that actually is a tool. Like, it's not meant there, like, technology isn't actually supposed to be a place. Like, maybe it substitutes when we don't have embodied relationships. But, my partner, Josh, he has a way of saying, like, yeah, you may have all these friends on Facebook, but how many will come lift a couch with you?
Yeah.
Right? And we basically turn friends into a commodity because those companies view us human beings as commodities.
Right.
And so it's permeated that. So I think there's a chance as a culture.
Do y'all hear that?
Yeah.
You've got a tech CEO telling you that you need to value human relationships, human contact. I mean, that to me is the real story here, is the good AI, the good tech is supporting human relationship,
100%.
Human dignity. The bad AI, the bad tech is saying you are the product. We are going to exploit you and use you, get your butt back on the treadmill. And I think that's the dividing line. And frankly, guys, that's the reason for the conversation today with Tim is I know that there are a lot of news stories and things we can talk about, and we can get upset about James Comey seashells and all that stuff. But like, this is a game changer. This is going to change our culture, our country, our world very quickly. It already is. And we got to kind of decide what the dividing lines are, because when we squish out and say, well, it's all good or it's all bad, no, it's not. I mean, it's far more complicated.
It's a choice. We have a choice as a nation, as a civilization, based on what we allow and what we reward.
Right.
And that choice can take us down a road where our kids are more empowered and more intelligent and healthier, and we are more empowered and more intelligent and healthier, where instead of being afraid of AI is going to take my job, like, which there is going to be this period coming where AI is going to outpace our ability to learn how to use it, and the cheap stuff will be to like go and replace things. This is happening in software right now. If you're seeing, like, there's layoffs everywhere in software because the killer app that's emerging from AI between this year and next year is it doing its own code.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to get there, and there's no stopping that. And so I just like,
right.
But there is the potential of people that would love to build things that never could before being able to do so because of AI.
So you would tell kids, don't learn to code now, learn to use AI.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so the way I look at it is this: when computers start building the code, it's going to get it'll get better, it'll get faster, it'll get much more sophisticated, and it'll be so complex we can't troubleshoot it the same way. So coding, computer programmers, will be like doctors. Okay, a system that's so complex that we can't fully control it, but we can perturb it, we can investigate it, and we can maybe fix it, or we can know we have to shut it off. Okay, so I think that's where computer science goes, like in a post-AI world, and I think there is a calling for that, and it's going to be a very challenging profession, just like being a doctor is a very challenging profession to be excellent at. And there'll be all varieties, and so I see that playing out over the next, say, 2 to 5 years. And I think for us, as human beings, we need to figure out, and this is hard. It's hard when my mom had a phrase, life is so daily.
Yeah.
And that is a way of saying that, like, we all oversubscribe ourselves. Well, most of us will oversubscribe ourselves every single day. And so there's this infinite backlog of stuff we know we love to do and we just can't get to. It is important. This is where you're going, Cam, is like it is very important to allocate some time to understand this change, because if you can tap into it, like, you basically get your own little army, your own little team of AIs. And I believe the future of work is going to be where everybody learns a kind of management skill of managing these AIs. And you don't have the baggage of, the challenge of management is actually humans. One of my former partners in my last business, his name's Rob, he had a great phrase, which was, all the hard problems are people problems.
Yeah.
That was his view of management, 100% right. And so we can take that hard problem and not have it because it's AI.
Right.
But we can potentially get the yield of the teams. Now, if that only is a few people that tap into that, we're going to have less jobs and a few people that are really well compensated. If everyone can tap into that, we have a creation economy where stuff that we dreamed we could do but never found the time to, we can actually do now. Okay?
Right.
And that, to me, like, that's sort of what comes after the Industrial Revolution. That's sort of the kind of magic showing up again, like flight.
Realistically, the scale and speed at which we will create, if we do this right, will blow our minds.
Yeah.
It will be like a cotton
magic. It'll basically be a kind of magic.
Yes. We will have cotton gins every month. And that is a wild thing to think of. We got to take a break, and then we'll wrap up with Tim Estes. If y'all got any last-minute questions, I'll get to the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. Awesome conversation. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll finish up. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Weather can change in an instant, and you need to be prepared for any outcome. That's why Generator Supercenter of Nashville will help keep your family safe and connected. We make buying a backup generator simple and easy, with financing options available, free in-home estimate, turnkey installations, no worry warranty, and most importantly, the monitoring and service of your fully installed generator. Come see us at our location in Nashville or visit us online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
The U.S. no longer has a perfect credit rating. Guilty verdicts in the federal public corruption trial of a former Tennessee Speaker of the House and Chief of Staff, and several inmates on the run and considered armed and dangerous in New Orleans. These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. We're finishing up with Tim Estes of Angel Q. And Tim, I really appreciate you being here. I mean, this is like complex stuff, and our audience has appreciated it. I can see on the Super Talk text line, folks are really, really interested in this. One final question, and then sort of a wrap up. 5645 says, why put data centers in cities like Memphis and not somewhere like Brentwood? Like, where do you put a data center? Why do you put it there? Does it matter? Can they go anywhere? What are you looking for when you're building this infrastructure, whether it's power or compute power, things like that?
Yeah, it's access to energy and access to the ability to keep the place cool. I mean, at some level, but it's mostly access to energy and cheapness of energy. And then you've got various real estate dynamics to play out as well. So that's the primary drivers.
I mean, you got the Mississippi right there, so you got plenty of water.
Exactly.
And so that does matter.
Yeah, and so that's why it made sense. Just why Louisiana, there's a case for that. I mean, might have been a little bit,
probably not coincidental,
a little bit on the scale,
case.
But I have nothing against Louisiana, and so it's just a matter of that was really convenient timing, and man, I wish we could have gotten that and then gotten the protection for millions and millions of kids.
Yeah, well,
can't have it all.
Data center, kids. I mean, choices. So I want to talk. You and I have talked a little bit about how a lot of parents like myself don't feel listened to about this. We feel like, town halls are a thing of the past with politicians. They don't seem to really be paying attention. What are you guys thinking about? How do you bring parents out? I know obviously you have a platform, you have a product, they can engage the product, but as far as, Google is not listening to me. Meta's not either. What makes you guys different? And is there an opportunity for us to sort of bring in industry, bring in politics, bring in parents and say, hey, how can we build the good AI of the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be beautiful to try to do a town hall, something like that. The idea would be that could you bring in, leaders across, the different lines. I mean, let's just look in Tennessee. Let's make it work locally. Then we can think about what it looks like nationally.
Yeah, sure.
Like nationally, in our state, we have some leaders who are out front on this issue who are ready to listen. And what they need is our help mobilizing to get people to basically pull the trigger and do it the right way this time. I think that the thing is missing is let's go invite tech. But I don't think it's about our politicians talking at us or about tech telling us why either they can't do the right thing or why they shouldn't have to, which is what they spend their time doing.
Right.
They should have to sit in a chair and listen to the parents.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We had a study that we actually sponsored that came out on Wednesday. And crazy fact, parents have hundreds of fights a year with their kids over screen time.
Of course.
96 hours of cumulative fighting. And anyone who has...
Yeah. I'm aware of this.
And we live it at different levels, at all ages. That's not natural. That's not natural. That's the addict behavior being intervened by the parent.
Right.
Every one of you that has a kid where you have to fight with them on screen time because they just want that so much, realize it's not something that's very natural and it's being done to them. And, we need to let those companies know that that has to go or you go.
Yeah.
And I do believe that's sort of where we have to get to. Having said that, that's a great abstract point. People got to deliver alternatives. So we can maybe try to figure out what companies are giving alternatives. Let's say we go put something together here, invite a bunch of people, I think pastors need to be involved in this.
Yeah,
I think school heads need to be involved in this. There was a Middle Tennessee symposium on sort of online safety health at David Lipscomb not too long ago that some schools here in town had helped put together, like St. Paul, and it was a great start. I wonder if we need to go bigger and we need to have, something together, but, I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that. So if the audience on this, show like thinks this is a cool idea, you can let Cam know.
Yeah.
And then, we'll put some cycles into it.
Y'all know where to find me.
Yeah,
Yell at me,
so-
and I'll hold you to it, Tim. I want to make sure that we get the parents heard here, that the tech community hears us, big tech hears us, politics hears us, the church is involved, schools are involved. I love it, man. Thank you for your time today. That's all for Tim right now. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk I can't even say it. Comey C. Shells. I mean, go figure. 86 something. Anyway, I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still tracking the potential for severe weather here in Middle Tennessee. We'll tell you the details during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now, some money news. Moody's dropped the U.S. credit rating today. It was the last perfect credit rating for the U.S. The move could rattle financial markets and push up interest rates. Here in Tennessee, guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassidy and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran. They were accused of pocketing money by setting up a fake company and then funneling money from state contracts to it. Both face up to 20 years in prison. When sentenced in September, the judge allowed their release until then. The New Orleans police chief says 6 of the 9 prisoners who escaped the city's main prison face first or second-degree murder or attempted murder charges or were convicted of murder and may have been helped by insiders. ABC's Maria Villarreal is following developments.
They were able to go back and look at the video that they have within the corrections facility. It does show them scaling a wall around 1 a.m. to get out of the facility. But one of the things law enforcement talked about was that this is a location where you can't escape on your own. Even though they were able to get through their cell and through a toilet that was attached to their wall, in order to actually get to the outside wall, they actually had to have help from someone outside.
The U.S. Supreme Court is blocking the Trump administration from deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. 2 justices dissented in the 7-2 vote today, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. And Republicans in Congress finding it difficult to align behind the big, beautiful bill that would expand the 2017 tax cuts and make significant changes to safety net programs such as Medicaid. Today, 5 members of the GOP voted not to advance the bill in the House Budget Committee. Talks will continue through the weekend. The House Budget Committee reconvenes on Sunday night to try again. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Rural Hill police say a stalled vehicle is blocking the left shoulder 24 eastbound after Bell Road. And then in June Lake, Williamson County, there's a crash on the shoulder. Highway Patrol there 65 northbound at exit 55. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, welcome back, guys. I really appreciate Tim Estes coming in, and you guys were fantastic. The back and forth for that conversation just shows that, I mean, you guys are paying attention. You're really figuring out this is going to be a game changer, and so I get it. I mean, it is a deep conversation. It's really, really heavy, but I think it's a good conversation to have, and periodically getting some of those updates and things. I want to make sure that you guys are as informed as you can be, and I know that's a lot on a Friday, but thank you for being such a fantastic audience. Again, 615-737-9986. You can text in. I know it's a Friday, so we got to wind down on some fun stuff. First, James Comey. What? This thing to me, we have lost our minds. One, I don't know a nice way to say this, but James Comey is an attention whore. That's what he is, how he's doing it, and that's why this is there. To say, so for those who don't know, on social media, James Comey posted a seashell, it's very hard to say, configuration of 8647. So 86, as you guys know, is a reference to get rid of somebody. Interestingly, as soon as this happened, he must be arrested and prosecuted. He should be put in jail for this. This is a threat to the life of the president. Just going hard, full send. I'm not a James Comey fan. I'm just simply saying that was pretty strong. And then the media immediately pointed out all the Trump's acolytes and folks who had said 8646. Jack Sobiak or whoever that is was one of the examples. On this kind of stuff, I generally argue towards protecting free speech. As much as I'm not a fan of James Comey, the idea that this is some tactical threat on the president and that we need to arrest him, prosecute him. If you want to arrest him and prosecute him, there's other stuff. You have, I think, stronger cases to go on than seashells, but that's okay. The reasonable bounds can differ. The challenge that I see is this is exactly what James Comey wants. James Comey would love for the Trump administration to persecute him over seashells. And I say persecute because that's how he's going to present it. And then we hear more about James Comey. We should just say, enjoy the beach. And that's it. For me, I think we've just got to be careful on these type of things. Yes, everybody, TB says, gee, didn't know what 86 signified. Yeah, right. You know, whether it's get rid of, here's the problem. Prosecute the guy, he can always say, well, I meant get rid of him politically. I mean, that's what, I hear you, TB. He said the reason Comey needs to be investigated is because he has the tools and the allies at his disposal to carry out the threat. Well, he's lost his security clearance. I think he's more of a social media maven than an actual threat, but I take the point. 9755 said, Dan lost his mind over this. Well, I didn't hear that. I just think if we're going to play this game of somebody said something in seashells, I cannot say seashells to save my life. Then, man, there's going to be a lot of people. What if he drew it in the sand with his finger? I mean, is that more or less likely that he really, really meant it and it was a true threat? I mean, that's a legal doctrine, true threats. This one, it's just so easy for him to say, yeah, I'm referring to this as political, and then that's the end of the discussion. And so that, for me, is a nothing burger. Do not give this guy more airtime. Do not prosecute him, because then he becomes a darling of the left, abused by the Trump administration and their lawlessness. They punish their political enemies. Nope, that was the last administration. We don't want to continue that game. That's not a thing. So on that one, Kathy said how he said it is not really the point. Fair. TB says she sells cheese. Stop it, TB. I can't. Don't do that to me. Don't ask me to read things.
He's testing you.
He is testing me. How Comey said it is not really the point. Okay, so let's say he tweeted it, like Jack Sobiak, I think that's his name, tweeted at 8646. Let's say he tweeted it. Same thing. He's looking for attention. He wants to be in the news. He wants to be relevant again. Like, come on. We all know what this is. It is attention-seeking behavior. It is much like a lot of the protesters who come to these hearings and yell when folks are trying to do a congressional hearing. I mean, y'all know what that is. You have seen that. I know it's 2025 and we are outrage junkies. We should stop. And I know that gets me in trouble sometimes because I try to kind of say cooler heads should prevail. But the attack and then the consequent victim posture, that's what he wants. He wants to be the victim. He wants to say he's relevant, he's been attacked. We're just going to see this over and over again, and it will never stop. It'll be somebody else. It's always somebody behaving like a child, doing something that your teenager probably knows is not appropriate, and then we are all outraged, and we call for them to be put in jail, executed, or worse, buried in the ground and next to a fire ant mound. I mean, I can think of fun stuff. 5237 actually makes a point that I do appreciate. Well, I do mostly agree with you. What do you think would be happening if the roles were reversed and someone else said age 646? Well, that actually happened and they were not prosecuted. Because despite our outrage culture, law enforcement, thankfully, though not all the time, we've seen political prosecutions. I'm not going to tell you the law enforcement system's perfect. I will tell you that, generally speaking, law enforcement, prosecutors, if they got a good case, they'll come after you. But if it's something like this, where there's a tweet, there's a shell formation, they're not looking to waste their time because they'll get laughed out of a courtroom. On social media, they may be heroes, but if you're standing before a judge and you say, well, Your Honor, he spelled out a thing in seashells, and we think that that's a threat to the president's life, the judge is just going to say, excuse me, get out of my courtroom. Like, they're just not going to be taken seriously. And I also understand 5284 said, it might not be a big deal if President Trump hadn't had multiple attempts on his life. When do you want to treat it seriously? I think you know the seashells aren't serious. Like, that is not a death threat. There are threats. They do investigate them. They do go after him. There have been attempts on his life. Chuck says any other person would have at least been investigated. Okay, it's a very fast investigation. And then we move on. So I get it. Some of y'all don't like that. A lot of y'all love it. I think we just have to be reasonable people. And there's a lot of dummies who say stuff that we just need to ignore. And that's the hard thing. Is we just don't want to let some of this stuff go. So I will do that. What I don't want to let go, if we're going to be outraged, I got something for you to be outraged. Some of you guys got it earlier. I said I'd come back to it. I've got another one. You can't use the Google machines. How many laws has Congress passed in the 119th Congress? That's question one. Question two, for those of you who know what a discharge petition is, how many of those have been filed? That's the bonus one. That's the tough one. And the third question is, what are we going to do about it? We'll start that conversation when we come back after the break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Tracking the potential for severe weather here in Middle Tennessee, there is a line of pretty strong storms. One of them packing tornado warnings there in southwestern Kentucky that we are keeping an eye on. Still a long way from Nashville, but something heading this way nonetheless. Guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Man, time flies when you're having fun. I'm Cameron Smith, at D Cameron Smith on the X machine. Come holler at me. Some of y'all are hollering at me. Don't take my word for it on Comey. 5182 says, hey, Cameron, Comey's just trying to sell books. Right now, right below the reports on this shell thing are ads for Comey's book. The best thing to do is ignore it. I would agree. My buddy Mike says, I need to pick some more fights. So I got a list of topics, and so we'll find one that'll get everybody fired up. TB, look. And I want to apologize for how long it has taken me on Wasted Bacon. But you deserve quality pork. You deserve the best, not some weird AI contorted. Man, I wrote a song about Randy the raccoon, and Randy likes to smoke and drink and steal the tractor, okay? There are some options here that we can get excited about. For those who don't know, Wasted Bacon is a fictitious band that Matt and I were kind of playing around with the idea. We went to a Men of Valor breakfast. There was a lot of Wasted Bacon, and we said that'd be a good album name. And then I realized, well, hey, all this AI stuff, I actually really like to write. We can make some funny songs, and I'm going to tease it, and I'm going to tell you what we're working with. Then I will produce. We're not going to leave you high and dry here, but I'm going to make sure that you got the good stuff. I don't want any of this like thin sliced bacon.
It's going to be quality pork.
Quality pork, just like that comes out of Washington, like the same. So we got. And I'm finishing Randy the Raccoon right now. We got Freaking America. That's a great song. Very excited.
Freaking America.
Voices on the Line. That's about you guys. So that's exciting. Teenage Amnesia. That's about my boys. Render the Fat. Thick Cut. These are all the pork series. Thick Cut. Meat Candy. The self-titled song Wasted Bacon. That's actually the story of how Wasted Bacon came to be. The free trade hit Don't Tariff Me, the pronoun song, he and she, Mr. Tickle's Last Laugh, which is a song about my sister's cat when she was a kid, and that cat wanted to eat me. Like, he hated me. Swamp Ass.
Swamp Ass.
Yeah, that's a big one. Tacos Again. It's a song about deciding where you want to go for dinner.
Yeah.
Throat Coat, which is the Dan Mandis song. It's there.
It's the only one I've heard, and it's a good one.
The one that's super catchy and is truly the only one that was just so good, I mostly left it, is Sailor Twift of Bot.
What?
So the thing wouldn't let me say the word Taylor Swift because it's concerned about
fair.
IP, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is when I was first learning it, in the style of, and said, nope, you cannot say that.
Interesting.
And so is Sailor Twift a bot is the result. And it's freaking magical, but it's coming, and I'm excited. This is the Matt Murphy Show. We got 1 hour left. I'm Cameron Smith, and this is Super Talk 99.7.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, tracking the potential for severe weather here in Middle Tennessee. Right now, everybody's under a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather tonight. Now, along and north of I-40, it is a level 4 out of 5 risk. And we are tracking at least one tornado warning right now in southwest Kentucky. It's about 20 miles west of Hopkinsville. This is a radar-indicated tornado moving east rapidly at about 55 miles per hour. But right now, there is nothing, no storm activity in Tennessee at this time. Just something we're going to have to keep an eye on for you. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Guilty verdicts in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran. They were accused of setting up a fake company and then funneling contracts and pocketing the money. Channel 4's Stacey Cameron's been there every day.
Both men now face up to 20 years in prison. And as I mentioned, the jury's verdicts were read first as to Cassida, the former Speaker of the House. His wife was in the courtroom, and when the verdict guilty was read to that first conspiracy count, his wife began to weep openly in court and cried softly throughout the reading of all 19 charges. When that was finally done, it was the first emotion we saw from Cassida. He looked up from his seat at the defendant's table, looked over at his wife, tears in his eyes as well. When the verdicts were finished being read with Cade Cothran, his attorneys just sat there in disbelief, shaking their heads.
Both men have been released until sentencing in September. Right now in New Orleans, the sheriff thinks 9 inmates had help to escape. 6 of them, she says, face murder or attempted murder charges. They're believed to be armed, and an urgent manhunt is underway. This is Sheriff Susan Hudson.
It's almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible for anybody to get out of this facility without help from the outside. We intend to find out exactly what happened.
Video shows the men scaling a wall around 1 o'clock in the morning to get out of the facility. In our nation's capital, the U.S. Supreme Court blocking the Trump administration from deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. 2 justices dissented, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. And Republicans in Congress finding it difficult to align behind the big, beautiful bill that would expand the 2017 tax cuts and make significant changes to safety net programs such as Medicaid. Today, 5 members of the GOP voted not to advance that bill in the House Budget Committee. Talks will continue through the weekend. The House Budget Committee reconvenes on Sunday night to try again. And a groundbreaking gene therapy technique put to work to help a 9-month-old baby boy.
KJ Muldoon, born with a rare disorder that causes dangerous levels of ammonia to build up in his blood. Doctors at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia came up with a customized gene editing treatment that corrects the single error in his genome. They removed the faulty gene, thus correcting errors in his DNA sequence. Hope, says ABC News chief medical correspondent Dr. Tara Narula, for others.
A similar approach with technology like this could treat hundreds of thousands of genetic diseases like sickle cell, cystic fibrosis, Huntington's disease, and muscular dystrophy.
Sherry Preston, ABC News.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. right, Williamson County Highway Patrol reporting a crash on the shoulder 65 northbound near June Lake Boulevard. Then in Antioch, police say there's a crash 24 westbound after Harding Place. Highway Patrol says there's a crash in Kingston Springs, 40 westbound, past exit 188. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, my friends, to the Matt Murphy Show for the final hour. We're having fun tonight, folks. Appreciate y'all being a good audience. Alex reached out, and she really needs her husband to turn down the radio. Apparently, my voice is a little loud at home. I mean, I hate that. Not actually. I mean, I actually like it a lot.
Yeah, everybody's getting good information.
Yeah, you know, we've talked about AI. I understand that was scary. I scared some people. Tim scared some people. But there's also some optimism there. There's good AI, there's bad AI. We've got choices. So, real quick, 5. 5 is the answer. That is how many laws Congress has passed as of today. Appropriations bill that kind of was a hangover from last year. The Lake and Riley Act, and 3 regulatory disapproval resolutions. That's it. So those of you who said 5 were right. In fact, I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to give you specifics just so you are informed. The 119th Congress began January 3rd to present day. There have been 6,093 pieces of legislation introduced. There have been 5 pieces of enacted legislation, 11 if you include incorporation, meaning in that appropriations bill, they bundled some other things in there. 161 passed resolutions, 168 votes. Since January 3rd, 168 votes. Gene, I'm sorry that AI bores you. That's unfortunate. What Gene's on the Super Talk text line. What would excite you, Gene? Tell me, and we can talk about that. It's Friday. We can talk about whatever we want. Failed legislation, 7. Vetoed bills, 0. Quote, other legislation, 5,752. These are your messaging bills. These are things that members throw in there. Y'all did not get 3. That is the number of discharge petitions filed. Discharge petition is basically a measure where somebody can bypass committee and say, I got 218 signatures here that say we're going to consider this, so committee, you're done. And you can force things onto the floor. It makes legislative leadership so mad. They hate dealing with that stuff. But a large majority of Republicans and a handful of Democrats can force votes. I really don't want to hear anymore about people writing letters, strongly worded letters to leadership saying we need to do some stuff. File discharge petitions. Collect signatures, do the work. And then let's see how it goes. I think that's really, really, really important. The Senate is the cooling saucer for stuff out of the House. The House hasn't done anything. Not really. And so this to me is a huge problem because leadership hates the idea of losing a vote. And when you have a narrow majority, then you can't do stuff. Let me explain what's happening right now. You have the Freedom Caucus types that are limited government. They don't like bright colors. I don't know. They're your hardliners, right? And then you've got the salties. Okay? The salties are folks who are typically more left of center. They're from California, New York, places where they have a high state income tax. And they want to get that deduction back. They want it lifted heavily on federal income tax. Huge deal for their constituents. And so we're playing little hostage games. And this is garbage because we can be able, or we can force action here, but we're just not doing it. And we're not bringing things up for a vote because what if the vote loses? Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but like our leaders are there to vote. That's the point. They're not there to have hearings and strongly worded letters and referring things to the executive. They're there to do that, to create legislation, to vote on it. Now, as a conservative, I don't care to have tons of stuff. I don't need Washington to do everything. But here's the trick and the thing that stinks. Chuck says, isn't the Freedom Caucus the Tea Party? Well, kind of. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair take, Chuck. You must, hang with me. I know this is going to sound weird. You must pass laws to shrink government. So you want to rein in spending? That's an appropriations bill. So you must pass the appropriations bill to say we're not going to spend as much. You want to get rid of an agency permanently? You must pass a law. So this idea of, well, Congress isn't doing anything, and I like it when Washington doesn't do anything. Well, me too, when it comes to expanding government. But in theory, Republicans who have the House, Senate, and White House should be able to shrink government, and they're not. They're not. I think I looked the other day, and to date, the Trump administration had spent $200 billion more than this point last year. So we're not reining in. I get the DOGE stuff. We're cutting some payroll. I get all that. But Congress has to do its job. They have to get this into law if you want some of these restraints on government to be permanent. And they're just peeing in your ear and telling you it's raining. That's what's happening right now. They go on Fox News, OAN, you name it, social media. Well, we're taking it to the woke left. We're fearless fighters, and you're not even good at your job. And that's what we should really be frustrated about. Chuck says, I'm opposed to one huge bill, even if it's beautiful. Me too, Chuck. Me too. So this is one of the things I learned in Alabama that was really interesting. They have a single subject rule. So bills have to pertain to a single subject. Now, they can be pretty complicated. It can be a big education bill, but you're not going to have a provision about ports, like seaports, in a education bill. Like, it is single subject. So at the state level, that's a thing for certain states. At the federal level, it's not hard. Just break it up. Well, that requires more work because if you don't have goodies in a thing for everybody, then people won't vote for it. To which I say, make them vote against it. Force the votes. And this is a radical departure from what we have done in recent memory. Because everybody, Democrat or Republican, is just so afraid to lose a vote that they will be embarrassed. They will look weak. Well, guess what? Mike Johnson has narrow majorities as Speaker. The Speaker's job is to bring legislation up and move it. It's not to win all the time. It's not. And I understand. I've been on the inside. I've watched this. I've seen this. It's, well, we have to stay together. We must do everything. Well, you represent people from all over the country. You're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. But when you're holding up everything because you can agree on nothing, that's a problem. And who knows? Maybe some Democrats haven't completely lost their mind, and they say, well, oh, there's 190 Republicans on a thing. We'll join them because, hey, we kind of support that too. Sweet. Now we're talking. This is real. And this is the challenge that I want to put for all of you. How many times do the people you vote for tell you what they're doing for you? And how many times do they tell you what the people you don't vote for are doing wrong? If you really think about it, they spend most of their time telling you about the other guy, the one you don't vote for. Well, they're terrible. They hate America. They're woke. They like illegal immigration. You know what the problem is? It's Mayor O'Connell. Liberals going liberal. Mayor O'Connell is talking to his base. They don't like immigration law enforcement. I do. I think we need to, if we're going to have a law, we should enforce it. Doesn't matter what level, everybody should work together to enforce the law. If we want to change it, which sometimes I think we should, you start from the position of enforcing the law. And that's a hardline position that a lot of people say, well, you're just uncaring. You don't care about these families. You know who didn't care about those immigrant families? All the Republicans and Democrats who came before who said we're not going to enforce the law because they allowed folks who were not where they should be, not doing what they should do, to set up lives. And I have a lot of empathy for them. That is terrible. I hate it for them. But to say that law enforcement is the problem, it's actually the folks that decided they wanted to, go with their feelings. If you want to change the law, but don't just sort of ignore it. And that's what happened. And that's what's happening in Congress, which is Congress doesn't actually like doing its job at all. It does not want to be responsible for anything. I helped write a piece of legislation called the REINS Act that would require Congress to be accountable for major federal rules that came from the executive branch. Basically caps that delegation of authority and says, we're going to vote on it before it can impact America. And that law has passed the House a couple times. But anytime somebody gets in power, they don't want that. They don't want that accountability. They do not want, Republicans could pass the REINS Act right now. But that would mean the people who we vote for would have to stand and look at us and say, I voted for that gigantic regulation that hurt your livelihood, that made things more expensive, that got in the way of economic liberty. And they would rather that thing happen than tell you, hey, I want to be accountable. I want to be a leader. That's what I'm here for. No, they just want to win a popularity contest and coast. So I say you fire them. And I want to be real clear about that. There are some great people. I know a lot of politicians, and there are a lot of them that are great folks. There's a lot of them who are just lazy. And until we start asking the tough questions of the people we vote for, we're going to get what we vote for. And that's unfortunate. We're just going to keep voting, keep saying, well, they're on Team Red. Team Red is good, right? 5. I just want you to remember that. 5. Team Red, 5. They could be shrinking government left and right. They could be reining in spending. They could be promoting economic liberty. They're not doing it. And they're just explaining why they're failing. That's not good enough for me. Maybe it's good enough for you. I'm getting too fired up, so we need to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Tennessee Speaker of the House and his chief of staff found guilty of public corruption. This story and more coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. Thank you, Alan, and 4574 for telling me to preach it when it comes to Congress not doing anything. That's encouraging. I thought I was getting a little wild. I need y'all to get a little wild. Y'all got to call those folks and just say, be like the Bobs from Office Space. Say, what would you say you do here? Do you just strongly worded letter? Got it. Thank you. Your letters are, what are you doing? I don't know. It's silliness. So I think we should take just a moment before the next break to talk about the plane. You know the plane, the Qatari $400 million palace in the sky. I've been reading about this thing, and I get it. Some of you guys are like, well, this is super smart. It's five-dimensional chess. He should absolutely take this thing. It doesn't look corrupt at all. And some of you guys are like, that seems weird. It doesn't seem like a great idea. Let's put that part on pause for a minute. The more information that comes out about this, it's just hilarious. The Qataris have been trying to dump this exact plane since 2020. Basically, they built a new fleet of smaller planes that are super flashy and awesome. It said the royal family, this is an article over at Forbes, plowed their wealth into an extravagant fleet of roughly a dozen Airbus and Boeing airliners converted into luxurious rides for a smaller number of passengers, as well as some smaller jets from Bombardier and Dassault. I think that's how you pronounce that. Maybe very French. The 747 that they offered to Trump was given the tail number A7HBJ, which was the initials of the Prime Minister of Qatar from 2007 to 2013. It was bought in 2012 at a list price of $367 million. They spent a lot more on the interior, so it's very, very nice plane. But the problem, I can't even pronounce some of the interiors. Wakapu wood is part of the interior. That's neat. I'm looking at some of the pictures of this thing. As of 2019, the VIP version of the 747A costs $23,000 an hour to operate. And everybody's trying to get rid of these things. They're just super expensive, inefficient, and they've given other planes like this away. They're trying to get rid of them. They are trying to dump them. And so the funny thing here is they're like, oh, what a lavish gift, palace in the sky. Trump's mad at Boeing, right? They've had a $3.9 billion, forget $400 million, $3.9 billion contract to fit out two 747s to serve as, I guess, Air Force One and Air Force Two. $3.9 billion. And Trump saying, well, this will save us money. But the problem is the Secret Service is not going to allow for lighter security. They're going to have to take this thing down to bare bones and rebuild it, upgrade it, do everything. And meanwhile, Boeing's years down the road in the process that began in 2018 during Trump's first term. So this whole thing is just silly. The whole thing's silly. They just want to dump it. That's what they're trying to do. And for us to get super animated about this it's kind of silly because this ain't going to be Air Force One, and it shouldn't be. People, CNN say, oh, it's a security risk. Well, you think? For some folks saying, well, it's bad optics. I agree with that. I do think it's bad optics. Sandra, who carries the water for Trump, says, you're not familiar with this culture. They offer very expensive gifts. That seems pretty obvious, Sandra. It does. My husband is stationed in the Middle East, and this is what they do. I'm not saying that it's not a nice thing. It's a $400 million airplane. But it's one that they hadn't been able to get rid of. The two things can be true simultaneously. 0360 says, no telling what kind of bugs or explode in midair devices are already implanted into that plane somewhere. I don't know about that. But I'm sure these guys are like, whew, we get rid of that one. And that's where it's kind of hilarious because everybody, whenever we hear anything, we have to be entirely supportive of it or entirely in opposition to it. And sometimes it's just, well, okay, but they just tried to dump a plane on President Trump. All right. They seem very pleased with themselves. Now we got to move on to the next thing. So there you go. That's what I think about the plane. You can tell me what you think as we wind this show down. 615-737-9986. We'll continue to talk about it, but we got to take a break right now. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And in money news, Moody's Ratings downgraded the United States debt today. It was its last perfect credit rating. The move could rattle financial markets and push up interest rates. The jury in the federal corruption trial of former Tennessee Speaker Glenn Cassida and his chief of staff at the time, Cade Cothran, returned guilty verdicts this morning. Here's Channel 4's Stacey Cameron.
Well, both men are certain to appeal the law that was given to the jury today, but sentencing will now take place in a couple of months after a federal probation report is read. Both men just moments ago asked the judge to release them while they pending the sentencing hearing, and the judge granted that, even though there were some issues that the prosecution raised to whether or not Cothran should be released. Both men will be released pending that sentencing.
Cassida and Cothran facing multiple charges related to funneling taxpayer money to a fake company through state contracts. They will be sentenced in September. Money News, Michelle Franzen.
The S&P scoring a 5-day win streak as stocks close higher across the board days after the U.S.-China tariff rollback. The S&P added 41 points, the Dow gained 332, and the Nasdaq grew 99. Investors might be diving back into some risky assets, but consumers aren't feeling as confident. The latest reading of U.S. consumers from the University of Michigan shows sentiment soured in May, the fifth straight month of decline. Charter Communications stock rose after the company agreed to a merger with Cox Communications in a $34 billion deal that would combine two of the country's largest cable companies. CoreWeave jumped 22% after NVIDIA disclosed that it had increased its ownership stake in the cloud company. The CEO of pharmaceutical company Novo Nordisk is stepping down in a mutual agreement with the board of directors. Novo's share price has been on a steep decline.
That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Cameron Smith filling in for Matt Murphy. No, you did not miss nincompoops in the news. Chris is not here. Matt's not here. We're doing the best we're just trying to hold it together, honestly.
I got a whole thing of duct tape I've been running around with.
It's just strange. I was wondering what was happening over there behind the glass. And
listen, it's a lot of stretching and a lot of making things work. The glass is barely holding itself up right now.
It's great. Well, if Bell's Cobra's back there, it could get worse.
Yeah, I had to tape that to the wall.
Tape it to the wall. I get it. Yeah, so I hear you on the jet. Most of y'all seem to be on the same page, which is, yeah, okay. We can accept it and mothball it, sit it there. But I just think it's funny that they've tried to unload these things. They can't. They gave one to President Erdogan from Turkey, and there was an older one given to an asset management firm, which it appears to have put theirs in storage.
Nice.
They're not easy to sell, apparently. And the poster child, this is from the Forbes article, is a lavish 747-8 commissioned for Saudi Crown Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud before his death in 2011. It was scrapped for parts in 2022 with just 42 hours of flight time. Wow.
Not very much.
No. Nope. And we had a caller call in and make a good recommendation. Why don't we accept it and use it for deportations?
I'm here for that.
That would be the nicest deportation ever. That's awesome.
Do they get in-flight service? That's
Yes. This is a palace in the sky taking you back to Venezuela. That would be a rough juxtaposition there.
Yeah. I don't know if we can.
No.
Is the jet fuel worth it?
No. I have thoughts. The 6173 said, "I'm getting to like you." Well, thank you. I aim to please. I'm here to entertain. And I've thought about it. I try to be just straight with you guys and tell you what I think. And I agree with you sometimes and disagree with you other times, but I'm always going to respect you. And I appreciate you. I don't want to be dismissive like, oh, you guys. I think you're great. And so I'm glad that you're getting to like me. I'm getting to like you too. Even Ray. Even Ray. Freaking Ray.
Give it time.
Yeah.
You'll be there.
Jason's one of my favorites, I got to be honest, because he just gives me crap all the time, but it's like your buddy that gives you crap.
Yeah, it brightens my day whenever I see him.
Right.
Just harking on Chris.
And,
he's just
right.
Just giving him stuff. And I'm like,
right.
That's perfect.
Yes.
I'm not the only one.
Just, Jason, I think he's sensitive about his facial hair, so use that as you will.
Please.
Please.
It looks a little unaligned today.
Yes, the edges are just, they're throwing me off.
That's the shape you went with today? Not like actually being derogatory, just.
Yes.
That's an interesting choice.
Cameron Erdogan. Yes. Which is hilarious that you give me the phonetical pronunciation of the leader of Turkey, Erdogan, and you spelled Cameron with an I.
Hold on.
Go figure.
Hold on.
Appreciate it, 8949. Camerin. Erdogan. That is the correct phonetical pronunciation. Thank you for correcting me, but
Got the
also
priorities in check.
Yeah. 2371. We're having fun. This is great. Keep them coming, guys. You're right, bro. You grow on people. I don't like it when you argue with Matt Murphy. Well, it's because you get so angry. I mean, and Matt's a dear friend. I've known Matt for 1,000 years. But what Matt does, and he would actually tell you this, is he gets real fired up and his face literally changes. His countenance changes. And he gets like this, I'm coming for you, big boy. And I love that. And so I'm just like, dude, you're being weird. No, I'm not saying the ridiculous thing you're saying and I'm saying. And what's funny is he's done this long enough that if you're not ready and you don't know it's coming, if you're a politician that gets crossed with Matt Murphy live, you're in trouble. It's going to get ugly. I, however, have been crossed with Matt so frequently that I'm like, are you done? Can we be nice now? And so that's where it is. And there's the whole thing where you sound like Chris from Family Guy. But other than that, I like you. All right. I can work with that. That's good.
Seth Green's a cool guy.
Yeah.
The actor for
Chris. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like I'm growing on you like fungus. That's really what I'm trying to do here. Let's see. 0360 said, bring the plane over here, then scrap it and use the proceeds to build the wall. I love that. It'd be a palace in the sky turned into a wall. Especially since Biden sold the wall for scrap price anyway. Joe didn't sell anything. Have y'all not been paying attention? The media just discovered they were being lied to. I don't know if y'all know that. Yeah.
No.
Jake Tapper has come out, and he's just shocked that they lied to him. They lied to him.
Can't believe it.
How could he? My favorite by far, and I'm a dork, so I pay attention to this, was the interview with Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan is the national security advisor, and he said, I got lied to. You know what, Jake? It's your job to find out things that people don't want you to know. That's literally what that role is. So for Jake Sullivan to be, no idea. Had no idea that
I was lost the whole time.
I was lost. I just didn't see it. Like, how encouraged do you guys feel? 9832 said, I'm not getting the Chris Griffin. Well, I appreciate that. I think that's nice of you. I don't know. I mean, I like those of you who are the haters and losers, much like Trump. Like, I think even if you're terrible, I should still be respectful and be nice to you, because guess what? What you want to talk about, what you want to read, what you want to listen to matters a lot to me. And so, and frankly, it's so boring. It is. I don't know about you guys. I get so bored when everybody says the same thing.
Yeah, when it sounds like an echo chamber.
Yes, that is creepy. Right? And I don't understand when 6733 says, poor, pitiful media. I'm so sorry it wasn't handed to them with no work. 0142 says, I like you, Cameron, as a person. Appreciate you not liking me as an animal. And for your undying love to help foster children. But I am more conservative/libertarian than you. I think we should fight about that.
Those are fighting words.
They are. How big old boy are you? Let's talk. Yeah, I get it. I mean, we can get into the who's more of what, but I think that's actually a political game that our lazy politicians get us into so that we fight each other and we act like, are you the most conservative of the conservatives?
I'm on top. I'm more conservative.
I'm like a level 10. Sometimes I meditate on Milton Friedman. I read his words regular. What? I mean, giggity, giggity. I like that. That's good. Well, but yeah, I mean, they want us. I appreciate 9832. You got the Roy D. Mercer that I threw down there. So thank you. You and I are clearly older. Sorry, we've reached the giggly phase of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the politicians want us to fight each other. If we fight each other and random weirdos in California, they win because we're not paying attention to them. You know, when we're talking about how the woke left and Antifa are ruining America, you know what's ruining America? Political class that doesn't care. It doesn't serve anybody, that doesn't help. That just wants to get up there, rub elbows with the rich and famous, and tell us why they can't do their jobs. So we need to take a break. We'll put a bow on this thing, but you guys have been great. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Weather can change in an instant, and you need to be prepared for any outcome. That's why Generator Supercenter of Nashville will help keep your family safe and connected. We make buying a backup generator simple and easy, with financing options available, free in-home estimate, turnkey installations, no worry warranty, and most importantly, the monitoring and service of your fully installed generator. Come see us at our location in Nashville or visit us online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
It's time to put this bad boy to bed. Y'all been awesome over the last several hours. I have so much fun when I get to join you guys, and I appreciate you loving me much like you love fungus, because you know it grows on you. It's super encouraging. I'll take it though. And 0142, who had challenged me on my conservatism and libertarianism, which, by the way, I'm not sure you can be more conservative and more libertarian simultaneously.
I believe that is pulling in opposite directions.
It seems like it. But then
just a hunch.
I said, well, how big old boy are you? And she said, LOL, I'm a 6 foot tall woman. So there we go.
Answers.
Yeah, I know now. Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I'll try not to pick a fight with you. I mean, sounds reasonably intimidating. One of my good buddies in high school, in Brentwood Academy, his mama was 6'4".
Wow.
And she was now he was 6'8". So he was a big dude.
Yeah.
But his mama, Nancy, who has since passed away, was the single largest woman I've ever met in my life. And she was so nice. Like, nicest lady ever. But when I say large, and you say that about lady, that sounds negative. Like, I'm not talking about, like, chonky. She was a giant, like an Amazon. It was impressive. I was like, wow. So
that's wild.
Hats off to all you tall ladies out there.
Yeah, I'm 6'2". That makes me short.
Yes, Nancy could pick you up and carry you around like a baby. It was truly impressive. I had the privilege while at Brentwood Academy of playing with some absolutely gigantic human beings. And, I played center, and, I'm not a huge guy. I was just the one who could, like, tell the other guys. I could point and be like, go kill that guy. And so I got to play. I got to play. My job was to be I got to play center and be the practice dummy at the same time. It was
nice.
Glorious.
Taking hits.
Yes. And then I played football at Washington and Lee and got hurt. And then I wondered, what am I doing? And that was that for the football career. But while we've been on.
Sorry, just you getting hit. You're laying on the ground and you sit up and go, I wonder if I could write.
No, there were two inflection points in my life that made me really study in school.
Yeah.
One was working for a farmer by the name of Bill Prim. He had a farm at the corner of Edmondson Pike and Concord Road.
Okay.
He was an honorary grandparent at my wedding, one of the greatest men I ever knew. And my dad, basically, we lived in the neighboring neighborhood.
Yeah.
And my dad would basically pimp me out to Mr. Prim to do manual labor. And it was hilarious. And I remember in the summer, or I guess fall, late summer, fall, early fall, catching the hay going into the barn. And we would pitch the hay into the barn. And I was up in the loft.
Impressive.
And it took me one season of being in the loft to learn, don't go in the loft when you're pitching hay. You want to throw the hay into the loft, and you want to be the one throwing it, not the one catching it.
Yeah.
Because you always think that catching it's going to be easier until you can't breathe.
Yeah, I bet that densely packed hay is harder than you think.
Yes. And, I did learn how to do hard work, but that was an inflection point in my life of like, maybe I should study because catching and pitching hay is tough. And
for me.
And there was a moment where I got caught in the cattle chute with a cow.
Ooh.
That also made me think about being a lawyer. And then the other was I thought I was big because I was a junior in high school and I was getting to start on the varsity football team at Brentwood Academy. And it just so happened that there was this other guy that played next to me, and his name was Scott Wells. And a lot of people around here know who Scott is because he played at UT and he played for the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
Scott could straight deadlift me without moving his feet.
Casually.
Yes. I weighed 220, 230. He just picked me up and throw me around. And Coach Carlton Flatt, who's a legendary coach at Brentwood Academy, his rationale, because I was like, Coach, this kind of hurts. Like, Scott's murdering me.
Maybe I shouldn't be here.
And maybe this isn't my thing. And his response was like, well, we need you to go against Scott. So, because we're afraid other people will get hurt. Well, what he should say was, you're the one that gets to get hurt.
You are the punching bag.
Right. And then that was the point where I realized, hey, I should have all the best words. I should do that. I should do radio and podcast and eat better and exercise. And so we've been working on that ever since. Cameron the farmer, I love farms, but good grief. Y'all
like
been
visiting,
great.
not
yeah.
working.
Someday we're going to get back to the farm, and you know what? I'm not tossing the hay. Y'all been great. We got to go. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.